Good evening there, ladies and gents. Welcome to Midnight Reddit Tales. We're back with another round of late-night stories from Reddit. As always, if you enjoy winding down with these videos, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Grab a warm drink, pull up a blanket, and let's get straight to the stories.
Story 1.
4 years. That's how long it had been. When I met Sophia, I was 24 and she was 31. She was from South America, a whirlwind of energy and ambition with a laugh that could disarm a bomb. I was just a kid. A kid with a decent job, but still coasting on the fumes of university life. I fell for her hard. She was everything I wasn't, worldly decisive, and she knew how to cook more than just toast. A year in, we moved in together. That's when the cracks started to show, and they were all my fault. I'd never lived out of home, not really. My contribution to the household was basically existing. Dishes piled up. The laundry basket overflowed. I was a domestic black hole. Sophia worked a brutal fly-in, fly-out schedule at a mine site 2 weeks on, 1 week off. She'd come home exhausted, ready to collapse, and walk into a house that looked like a student dorm after a bender. She'd sigh, tie her hair up, and just start cleaning. I'd offer a clumsy, "Sorry, I was going to do that," but my excuse was always the same. My face was buried in my laptop, obsessively tracking stocks and crypto. "I'm building our future, Soph," I'd say, pointing at some incomprehensible chart. This is how we get ahead. We buy a house, we invest, we win. In my head, I was the provider, the visionary. In reality, I was a passenger. She was the one paying half the bills, times and times doing all the work. We did buy the house, a huge milestone that felt more like her achievement than ours. We just lodged the de facto visa application, tying our lives together with government-stamped paperwork. I was her sponsor. Her future in Australia was legally tethered to me. The pressure was immense, but I was too busy staring at spreadsheets to really feel it. The strain bled into every corner of our life, especially the bedroom. It became a dead zone. For over a year, nothing. I'd try to initiate to bridge the growing chasm between us. I'd buy condoms trying to be responsible, and she'd have a sudden headache. Or the box would mysteriously disappear from the bedside table, only to turn up in the back of a bathroom cabinet a week later. She'd find any reason to start a fight right as we were getting into bed. It was sabotage, plain and simple. An active, methodical dismantling of our intimacy. I just couldn't see it for what it was. I thought I was the problem. If I could just make more money, secure our future, then she'd relax. Then she'd want me again. I was so wrong. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. She'd just gotten home from her 2-week swing. I'd had a week to get the house in order. I hadn't. The sink was full, dirty clothes were heaped on the laundry chair, and I was on the couch, laptop open, tracking a dip in the market. She didn't yell. It was worse. She just stood in the doorway, her work bag still on her shoulder, and looked at the squalor. Then she looked at me. Her face was hollowed out with exhaustion. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice flat dead. "I come home from 14 days of hell in the desert to this. To a second job." She gestured around the room. "I feel like I'm living with a child." You know what you are, Andrew. You're a dropkick. Asterisk, dropkick, asterisk. The word hit me like a physical blow. A useless, hopeless idiot. She was right. In that instant, something inside me snapped. It was a full system reboot. The fog of my financial obsessions evaporated, and I saw myself through her eyes. I saw the lazy, selfish boy she was shackled to. I closed the laptop. "You're right," I said. It was all I could manage. That night I didn't sleep. The next morning I started. I scrubbed the kitchen until my knuckles were raw. I cleaned the bathroom, did 3 loads of laundry, and vacuumed the entire house. I downloaded recipes and started cooking proper meals. I detailed her car. I mowed the lawns. I became a machine of domestic competence. I was determined to prove her wrong to become the man she deserved. I kept it up. For months. The house was spotless. Dinner was on the table when she got home from her local shifts. I took on all the mental load, managed the bills, planned our weekends. I had transformed. I was finally the partner I should have been all along. And the strangest thing happened. It got worse. She became more distant than ever. My efforts were met with a polite, "That's nice," or a non-committal shrug. The wall between us grew higher, thicker. She stopped looking me in the eye. When I'd lean in to kiss her, she'd turn her head at the last second, offering me her cheek like I was a distant uncle. Every touch was deflected. Every attempt at a real conversation was shut down with, "I'm just tired." I was going insane. I'd done everything she wanted. I'd changed completely. What else was there? I lay awake at night, my mind racing. Asterisk. What am I doing wrong? What more can I possibly do? Times I felt like I was trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it, pouring all my energy and love into a relationship that was draining away for reasons I couldn't comprehend. I was more alone lying next to her than I had ever been in my life. This afternoon, I decided to deep clean her home office. It was the one space I'd neglected. A surprise for when she got home. I dusted the shelves, organized her paperwork, and wiped down her desk. Her laptop was sitting there closed. I just needed to move it to clean underneath. As I picked it up, the screen flickered to life. It must not have been fully shut down. And there it was. A chat window was open on the screen. A message from a guy named Marco. The last message, sent just 20 minutes ago, was a single line that made the blood drain from my face. Counting the seconds until you're back on site. Last swing was epic. He has no idea, does he? My heart hammered against my ribs. I clicked on the window, and I started to scroll up. Months of it. Explicit, detailed, obscene messages. Photos, plans. It wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a full-blown affair with some younger guy from the mine. I scrolled back, my hands shaking, trying to pinpoint when it started. And then I saw it. The date on the first flirtatious messages. It was the week after she called me a dropkick. The week I started changing. She hadn't been falling out of love with me as I transformed into a better man. She had already left. I just sat there in her stupidly clean office staring at the screen. The words blurred through the tears welling in my eyes. The irony was a stake through the chest. She didn't cheat on the useless, immature kid. She cheated on the man she supposedly always wanted me to be. Then I heard it. The sound of her car crunching gravel in the driveway. The engine cut out. The car door slammed shut. Her footsteps were coming up the path. The front door opened and closed. "Andrew, I'm home," she called out, her voice laced with that fake cheerful tone she'd been using for months. I didn't move from the chair. I just listened to her footsteps on the hardwood floor, the rustle of her bag being dropped on the couch. Silence. She must have noticed the house was unusually quiet. "Andrew," she said again, her voice closer now. She appeared in the office doorway. Her smile was already in place, but it faltered when she saw me, saw the laptop open on her desk, saw the expression on my face. Her eyes flicked from me to the screen and back again. The color drained from her cheeks. I didn't raise my voice. I kept it low, steady. "Who's Marco?" She didn't even try to lie. She just stared at me, her mouth a thin line. Her silence was the only confession I needed. "I asked you a question, Sophia." "He's a guy from work," she mumbled, looking at the floor. "A guy from work," I repeated the words, tasting like acid. "The guy from work whose epic last swing you're still thinking about. The guy from work you've been sending photos to. The guy from work you've been fucking for months. She flinched at the word, but her face hardened, a mask of defiance clicking into place. It's not what you think. Oh, I think it is, I said, standing up slowly. The screen cast a pale blue light on her guilty face. I think you're a liar and a cheat. The only question I have is why? We'd grown apart, she said, her voice cold, clinical. I fell out of love with you, Andrew. The sheer breathtaking audacity of it stole my breath. You fell out of love with me, I said, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. I pointed a shaking finger toward the living room. When? When I was that dropkick? Who left his dishes in the sink? When I was glued to my laptop ignoring you? No. That's not when it started, was it? I gestured back at the screen. It started the week after you called me out. The week I started cleaning this house, cooking your meals, trying to be the man you supposedly wanted. I stepped closer, invading her space. You didn't cheat on the lazy kid. You cheated on the man who was trying his damn best for you. For times us, asterisk. You had your affair while I was scrubbing your fucking toilet. So don't you dare stand there and tell me you fell out of love. You're just a coward. Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of anger, of being caught. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I snapped. Pack your things. I want you out. Tonight. You can't do that. The house. My visa. A switch flipped inside me. The grief was still there, a hot rock in my gut, but a cold, clear certainty settled over it. The house is half mine. You can have your share when we sell. And the visa, I said, pulling my phone from my pocket, is sponsored by me. Your de facto partner. Funny thing about that. That we're not a de facto couple anymore, are we? Lying on a government form is fraud, Sophia. And I'm not going to commit fraud for you. Her face went pale with panic. Andrew, please, don't. You'll ruin my life. You ruined ours, I said, turning my back on her. I walked into the living room and found the number for our immigration agent. She followed me, pleading, arguing, but it was just noise. I left a blunt voicemail. Hi, it's Andrew. I'm calling to inform you that Sophia and I have separated. I am formally withdrawing my sponsorship for her partner visa effective immediately. Please send me whatever paperwork I need to sign. I hung up. She was staring at me, her mouth open in disbelief. Get out of my house, I said. The next few weeks were a blur of cold logistics. Lawyers, real estate agents, bank meetings. We communicated only through text messages and emails, sterile and to the point. I had my parents co-sign a loan to buy out her half of the house. I wanted her name off the title and out of my life as quickly as possible. Signing those final papers, handing over a bank check for her share of our life together felt like an exorcism. Once she was gone, she started trying to crawl back in. Not with apologies, but with small, pathetic gestures. A text with a photo of a dog that looked like one we saw once. Thinking of you, it read. I blocked her number. She sent an email a week later. Just wanted to see if you got that package I left. I went to the porch. A box with a new espresso machine, the brand I'd been wanting. I left it on the curb. She tried dropping off a meal prep container of my favorite lasagna at my parents' place. My mom met her at the door and told her politely but firmly to never come back. Each attempt was a transparent, self-serving bid for absolution or worse, a ploy to get me to reconsider the visa. She didn't miss me. She missed the life, the security I provided, the convenience of me. I fell apart for a while. I moved back in with my parents, the prodigal dropkick returning home. I couldn't stand being in the house where every room held a memory that was now tainted. For 2 months, I barely functioned. I grieved the woman I thought she was, and I grieved the man I had been the fool who couldn't see what was right in front of him. But slowly I started putting the pieces back together. I rented out my house, letting the tenants pay down the mortgage I'd fought to keep. I started going to the gym again. I focused on my work, on my investments, but this time with a sense of purpose, not obsession. It wasn't for us anymore. It was for me. About 6 months after the split, I got a message from a mutual friend. A screenshot from Sophia's Instagram. A picture of her and Marco smiling with the caption, "Permanent resident, celebrating the next chapter in Australia, with my love." I stared at the picture. I felt nothing. No anger, no jealousy, no pain. I didn't know how she'd managed it, a new sponsor, some other loophole, and I found I didn't care. Her life was no longer my concern. The knot of betrayal in my stomach, the one I'd been carrying for months, had finally dissolved. I put my phone down and looked out the window. The sun was setting. I had my own life to build. I realized she'd given me a gift in her betrayal. She'd shown me her true colors. Her love had been a transaction, and when she found a better deal, she took it. Her calling me a dropkick wasn't a wake-up call for me to be a better partner for her. It was just her excuse to check out. I had changed for her, but now I was changing for myself. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt free.
Story 2.
My sister Summer died 2 years before I was born. I don't mean that as some poetic opening line. It's a fact, a piece of family trivia that has defined every single day of my life. Summer was the firstborn, the perfect baby, who lived for 6 short, beautiful months before Sid stole her from my parents. Then I came along, the replacement daughter. They never said it, of course. But they didn't have to. Every birthday cake I ever had was shared with a ghost. Oh, Summer would have loved chocolate cake. My mom would whisper a single tear tracing a path through her makeup. When I graduated high school, my dad hugged me and said Summer would have been so proud of her little sister. I wasn't just Kathleen. I was Kathleen, the sister of Summer. The one who lived. It was suffocating. I spent my whole life trying to be twice as good, twice as happy to make up for the daughter they lost. I felt like a placeholder, a constant walking reminder of their grief. So when my husband Cale and I found out we were having a girl, a fierce protective feeling washed over me. This baby times my times baby would be her own person. She would never have to compete with a memory. We were at my parents' house for Sunday dinner when we told them. My mom burst into tears, the happy kind for once, and my dad clapped Cale on the back, his face beaming. A little girl, my mom sobbed, clutching my hand. "Oh, I'm just so happy." We ate, we talked about names, and I carefully steered the conversation away from anything, starting with an S. Then, as Cale and I were getting our coats, my mom put a hand on my swollen stomach. Her eyes had that faraway look I knew so well. "You know," she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "We were always so sad we never got to see our Summer grow up." I froze. I knew where this was going. Maybe now she looked from me to Cale, her eyes pleading, "We can." Before I could even form a word, before I could gently explain why that was impossible, Cale grinned. He wrapped an arm around my shoulders and squeezed. "Summer," he said, testing the name out. "I love it, Carol. It's beautiful." He looked down at me, his eyes shining, completely oblivious to the panic seizing my lungs. "What do you think, Cat Summer?" "Our little Summer..." My mom was crying again. My dad was nodding, a solemn, grateful look on his face. It was done. The decision was made. 3 against 1, and I hadn't even said a word. The car ride home was silent. Cale had the radio on, humming along to some pop song while my stomach twisted into a knot so tight I thought I might be sick. The moment we walked through the front door, I turned on him. "You can't have been serious." He looked baffled. Serious about what? The name, I think. It's perfect. No, Kale. It's not perfect. It's my dead sister's name. He dropped his keys on the counter with a clatter. Yeah, I know. That's the point. It's a tribute. It would mean the world to your parents. I don't care what it would mean to my parents. The words came out sharper than I intended. I took a breath. This is our daughter. Not a do-over for them. I want her to have her own name. Her own identity. I pressed my hands to my belly. I don't want her growing up in a shadow, Kale. You have no idea what that's like. He softened a little, pulling me into a hug I didn't want. Babe, you're overthinking this. It's just a beautiful name. It doesn't have to carry all this weight you're putting on it. She'll make it her own. She can't, I mumbled into his shoulder, feeling defeated. They'll never let her. He pulled back, his expression hardening again. You're being a little dramatic, don't you think? It's a way to show love. To connect our daughter to the family. It's a way to make our daughter a living memorial. I won't do it. The next day I called my mom. I kept my voice calm and steady, rehearsing the words I'd practiced all morning. Mom, about the name. Kale and I have decided to go in a different direction. It's a lovely idea, but we want our daughter to have a name that's just for her. The silence on the other end was heavy. Then came a small choked sob. I don't understand, she whispered. Why would you be so cruel after everything we've been through? We just wanted to honor her. You can honor her without naming my child after her, I said, my own voice starting to shake. This isn't fair to her. Fair, she cried. Was it fair that she died? Was it fair that we lost our baby girl? This is the one thing we asked, Kathleen. The one thing. She hung up. And then the campaign began. It started with text from my dad. Asterisk. Your mother is heartbroken. I've never seen her this upset. Asterisk. Then came the guilt-laced voicemails. Asterisk. I was just looking at Summer's baby book. She had your eyes, you know. Asterisk. Kale was no help. He kept telling me to just think about it, and that my hormones were making me emotional. He thought I'd eventually cave. He didn't understand this was a line I would not cross. The pressure intensified. My parents started dropping things off at the house. A little yellow onesie. Summer would have looked so sweet in yellow, the note said. A framed picture of a sunset for the nursery. Subtlety was not their strong suit. I found myself screening their calls my own home, starting to feel like a trap. Kale was growing more and more distant, siding with them in little ways. They're just grieving Kat, he'd say. You could be a little more compassionate. The breaking point came a week later. I was in the kitchen when I heard Kale on the phone in the living room, his voice low. I know, Carol, I know, he was saying. I'm working on it. No, you're right. It's important to all of us. A pause. She's just being stubborn. She'll come around. We just have to present a united front. A united front. Against me. My blood ran cold. He had officially joined their team. My husband, the man who was supposed to be my partner, had decided that my feelings, my entire life's experience, were less important than placating my parents' 2-decade-old grief. He was conspiring with them. I didn't confront him. I didn't have the energy. I just felt a profound, chilling loneliness. I was completely on my own in this. 2 nights later, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it to find my mother and my father standing on the porch. And right behind them, his hand on my mom's shoulder, was Kale. He wouldn't meet my eyes. What's going on? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. We need to talk, Kale said, his tone flat and formal. He brushed past me into the house, my parents following like a solemn procession. All of us. We're going to settle this right now. He turned to face me, and in his hand he was holding a piece of paper. A list. Your parents and I, he said, have put together a few reasons why you're being unreasonable. I stared at the piece of paper in his hand. A list. An honest-to-God bullet-pointed list. My chest felt tight, the air in the room suddenly thick and unbreathable. You're kidding me, I whispered. Number 1, Cale said, ignoring me and clearing his throat like he was giving a business presentation. It honors a family member who was taken too soon. It gives her a legacy. My father nodded gravely. Summer deserves to be honored, Kathleen. And my daughter, I shot back, my voice trembling. What does she deserve? She deserves to live life as herself, not as someone's legacy. Not as a memorial. Don't be so dramatic, my mother sniffed, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue she'd apparently brought for this very purpose. It's a beautiful name. People will think it's for the season. You won't, I said, looking right at her. You'll never look at her and see just her. You'll see the baby you lost. It's not fair to put that on a child. Number 2, Cale continued, his voice louder, now trying to steamroll me. It will bring your parents immense comfort and joy. It's a selfless act of love. Selfless, I let out a harsh, disbelieving laugh. You want me to sacrifice my own daughter's identity for their comfort? That isn't love, Cale. That's appeasement. It's about family, my dad boomed, his face turning red. Something you clearly don't understand. The emotional manipulation peaked then. My mother stepped forward, her hands clasped over her heart, tears streaming freely now. Her voice was a broken whisper. Just think of what your sister would want, she pleaded. Think of how I love my sister and miss her every day. Oh, Kathleen, I miss my baby so much. But she wasn't talking about her sister. She was talking about her daughter. The slip was so Freudian, so deeply revealing of the twisted-up grief that had defined our lives that something inside me finally snapped. The dam of a lifetime's worth of resentment, of feeling like a second-best consolation prize, just broke. I don't care what she would want, the yell ripped from my throat, raw and ragged. The 3 of them physically flinched. I don't care, I never knew her. Do you hear me? I never met Summer. She's not my sister, she's a story you told me. She's a face in a photograph, and a reason my birthday was always sad. Tears were blinding me, hot and furious. You want to name my baby my living, breathing daughter after a ghost? A ghost who has haunted every single day of my life? I don't want to name my daughter after a sister I never even knew. The silence that followed was absolute. It was heavier and more terrifying than the yelling. My mother looked like I had slapped her. My father's face was white with shock. But the worst was Cale. He looked at me with a mixture of horror and disgust. As if I was a complete stranger, a monster he'd accidentally married. My mother was the first to speak, her voice venomously quiet. You cruel, cruel girl. My father just shook his head, put his arm around my mom, and guided her toward the door. He didn't look at me again. Cale waited until he heard their car pull away before he turned to me. The warmth was gone from his eyes, replaced by a sheet of ice. I can't believe you did that, he said, his voice flat. After everything they've been through, to be that vicious. To throw their grief in their faces. Their grief I choked out. What about my life, Cale? What about the fact that they never let me just be me? Did you ever once stop and think about that? They love you, he clipped. And you just spat on the memory of their dead child. I'm sleeping on the couch. He walked away without another word, leaving me standing alone in the living room, my hands protectively on my stomach, my whole body shaking from the aftershock. He didn't get it. None of them did. They saw my boundary as an attack. My honesty as cruelty. I was completely, utterly alone. And a new, terrifying thought crept into my mind as I stood there in the wreckage of my family. What if he just writes it on the birth certificate anyway? He was one of them now. He could just go behind my back. The next few weeks were a cold war. Cale and I moved around each other like ghosts in our own home. We spoke only when necessary about bills or groceries. He never touched my belly again. He never asked how I was feeling. He was waiting for an apology, one I would die before I gave him. My parents didn't call. I was officially disowned, erased, for refusing to let my daughter become the sequel to their tragedy. The loneliness was suffocating, but underneath it, something new was growing. A hard, unyielding resolve. He was right about one thing. We did need a united front. It was just going to be me and my daughter. Against them. And I would not lose. The revenge wasn't a single fiery act. It was a series of quiet, deliberate moves. I called a family law attorney and had a 30-minute consultation. She confirmed that in our state as the mother, I had the primary right to name the child and that I could ensure my name was listed as the sole informant on the hospital paperwork. Knowledge was power. Next, I packed my hospital bag, but I also packed a second bag, a suitcase. I put it in the trunk of my car and told my best friend Sarah that I might be showing up at her door in the middle of the night. The most important step came a week before my due date. I went to the hospital for my final checkup and made a special appointment with patient registration. I sat with a kind older woman named Maria, and I told her a heavily edited version of the story. My husband's family is putting us under a lot of pressure to use a specific family name, I said, forcing a calm I didn't feel. It's a name I'm not comfortable with. I'm worried that in the chaos after delivery, my husband might fill out the forms incorrectly. Maria's expression was one of complete understanding. She'd seen it all. Honey, she said, patting my hand. Don't you worry. We will put a note in your file. A big one. The birth certificate worksheet will be given only to you. No one else can fill it out or submit it. We'll make sure of it. When my water broke 2 days later, I didn't tell Cale. I texted Sarah. Asterisk, it's time. Asterisk, then I walked into the living room where he was watching TV. My water just broke, I said. I'm going to the hospital. He jumped up, his eyes wide with the flicker of the old Cale. Okay, let me get the bag, let's go. No, I said, holding up a hand. You're not coming in with me. You can wait in the waiting room. If you want. The shock on his face was satisfyingly real. What, Kat? You can't be serious. I'm the father. You lost the right to be my partner when you sided with them against me and our daughter, I said, my voice as cold and hard as I felt. You can find out when it's over, just like they can. Sarah is my support person. I didn't wait for his reply. I walked out the door, got in my car, and drove away. Hours later, after a fight, I won, all on my own. I was holding her. My daughter. She was perfect pink and screaming with a full head of dark hair. And as I held her against my chest skin to skin, the nurse handed me a clipboard. I looked down at the form at the blank line for her name. Then I looked at her, my beautiful tiny girl. She was her own person. She was a new beginning. I picked up the pen and wrote her name clear and bold. Chloe.
Story 3.
6 years. That's how long it took to scrape the memory of that day off the inside of my skull. For 6 years, I'd been the one who got left at the altar. It was a brand seared onto my identity in my hometown. Mark, my high school sweetheart, had left me a note in the church vestibule. A 3-sentence masterpiece of cowardice that boiled down to times, I'm sorry, I'm in love with someone else, and she's pregnant. Asterisk. My family was my lifeboat. My parents, my aunt, and especially my younger sister, Clara. She was the one who held my hand while I dry heaved into a toilet, my $5,000 wedding dress pooled around my knees. She was the one who boxed up every picture of Mark and threw them into a bonfire in our backyard. She helped me rebuild. Now it was her turn. And she was doing it right. Her fiancé Liam was a solid guy. A genuinely good man who looked at her like she'd hung the moon. The only problem was money. They were young, renting a tiny apartment, and trying to build a life on 2 entry-level salaries. A big wedding was a fantasy, which is how we ended up in a bridal boutique that smelled like champagne and anxiety. Clara stood in front of a 3-way mirror, a vision in layers of silk and lace. It was the Times dress. The one she'd bookmarked 100 times, the one pinned to the top of her secret Pinterest board. It had delicate hand-stitched flowers cascading down the bodice and a train that seemed to go on for miles. It was perfect. It was also $7,000. I watched her face crumble as she looked at the price tag. The light in her eyes just went out. "Well," she whispered, her voice cracking. It was fun to pretend. She started to fumble with the zipper. "Wait," I said, stepping forward. I saw my own ghost in that mirror, a younger me giddy with a hope that was about to be obliterated. I had my own dream dress now sealed in a vacuum bag in my attic like a piece of toxic evidence. Maybe I could turn that poison into medicine for her. "What do you mean, wait?" Clara asked, her eyes already welling up. "Helen, there's no way." "Consider it my wedding gift," I said, my voice firmer than I expected. "The whole thing. I'll buy it for you." The boutique fell silent. Clara froze. Then her face completely dissolved into tears. Not the sad, defeated tears from a moment ago, but a tidal wave of pure, unadulterated joy. She threw her arms around me, lace and tulle and all. "Are you serious?" she sobbed into my shoulder. "Helen, you can't. It's too much." "I can," I said, hugging her tight. "And I want to. You deserve to feel like a princess. No compromises." It was the best money I'd ever spent. Mom cried. The sales associate cried. The whole thing was a made-for-TV movie moment. For the next few weeks, I was the family hero. My generosity was the main topic of conversation. It felt good. It felt like I was finally closing a painful chapter and using my hard-earned success to create a beautiful new one for my sister. The deposit was paid. The dress was ordered. Everything was perfect. Until last night's family dinner. It was a casual Sunday thing at my parents' house. Me, Mom, Dad, Clara, and Liam, and my Aunt Carol. The air was thick with wedding talk, centerpieces, cake flavors, seating charts. I was sipping my wine, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the alcohol. I was genuinely happy for her. Dad was grilling Liam about pre-wedding jitters. "You getting cold feet yet, son?" he asked, winking. Liam laughed, grabbing Clara's hand. "Not a chance. Just nervous about tripping over my own feet when I see her walking down the aisle." It was sweet. Everyone smiled. Clara, a little flushed from her second glass of wine, let out a loud theatrical laugh. "Yeah, well, just make sure you actually show up," she said, her voice glib. A weird little knot tightened in my stomach. She wasn't done. She waved her fork in the air, a smirk playing on her lips. "Let's just hope he won't run away with a pregnant mistress or something." The words hit the air and hung there thick and toxic. My fork clattered against my plate. The sound was like a gunshot in the sudden silence. She hadn't just made a joke. She had recited almost word for word the single most traumatic event of my life. The line I had screamed at her through hysterical tears 6 years ago. Asterisk. "He left me for his pregnant mistress, Clara." Asterisk. My Aunt Carol broke the spell. She let out a sharp, barking laugh. "Oh, Clara, that's just awful," she cackled, slapping the table. The warmth I'd felt moments before vanished, replaced by a glacial cold that started in my chest and spread through my limbs. The lively dining room, the smell of roast chicken, the faces of my family, it all faded into a dull, humming background. All I could see was Mark's handwriting on that crumpled piece of paper. All I could feel was the suffocating weight of that veil. I looked up. Clara was still smiling a little nervously now, watching me, waiting for me to laugh along, waiting for me to validate her joke. My own sister. The one I just handed a $7,000 dream to, and she was using my nightmare as a punchline for a cheap laugh. My mother's face was a mask of strained pleasantry. "Clara, don't be morbid," she chided gently. My father cleared his throat. "Helen, honey, she was just kidding around." But I wasn't listening. The blood was pounding in my ears, a furious drumbeat of betrayal. I stared across the table right into my sister's eyes. The smirk was gone, replaced by a flicker of dawning horror as she finally registered the look on my face. She knew what she'd done. And in that one shattering moment, something inside me finally broke. My voice was quiet, but it sliced through the room. "What did you just say?" Claire's face went white. The smirk was gone, replaced by a panicked, flickering guilt. "Helen, It was just a joke. A stupid joke." "A joke," I repeated, the word tasting like poison. I pushed my chair back, the legs screeching against the hardwood floor. Everyone flinched. "You think that's a joke?" "Helen, honey, calm down," my father started, raising his hands in a placating gesture. "She didn't mean it." I didn't even look at him. My eyes were locked on my sister. "You stood there in that boutique and you cried in my arms. You said I was the most generous person you knew." Was that a joke too? Were you laughing at me then, thinking about how you could use the story of my life's biggest humiliation for a cheap laugh later? Tears started to stream down Clara's face. They weren't the tears of joy from the bridal shop. These were the panicked, selfish tears of someone who'd just been caught. "No, of course not. I'm so sorry." I wasn't thinking. "That's the problem, Clara. You never think I was on my feet now, my whole body vibrating with a rage I hadn't felt in 6 years. It was the rage I should have felt at Mark, but had instead turned inward. Now it had a target. You took the single most painful day of my life, a day you supposedly helped me survive, and you served it up like an appetizer. You and Aunt Carol cackling like hyenas." Aunt Carol looked down at her plate, suddenly fascinated by her mashed potatoes. "That is enough," my mother said, her voice sharp. "You are making a scene, Helen. Apologize to your aunt." I laughed. A raw, ugly sound that had no humor in it. "Apologize? Are you kidding me?" I grabbed my purse from the floor and my keys from the counter. The metallic jingle was the only sound in the dead silent room. Clara stood up, her hands outstretched. "Helen, please don't go. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Please." I walked to the door, my back to all of them. I could feel their eyes on me, could feel the weight of their collective judgment. They wanted me to be the bigger person. To swallow the pain, smooth things over, and let Clara have her perfect wedding. Just like they wanted me to get over Mark and stop being the one who got left at the altar. I paused, with my hand on the doorknob, and turned my head just enough to look at my sister. Her face was a mess of tears and makeup, her mouth trembling. She looked pathetic. And for the first time, I felt nothing. No pity, no empathy. Just a cold, hard finality. "You can think about how sorry you are while you're shopping for a dress you can actually afford," I said, my voice flat and empty. "Because as of right now, you are getting $0 from me." I didn't wait for a reaction. I walked out and pulled the door shut behind me, the click of the latch sounding like a gavel. I made it halfway to my car before the front door flew open again. "Helen, it was my dad," his voice booming into the quiet suburban street. "Get back here. This is absurd." I ignored him, fumbling with my keys, my hands shaking so badly I couldn't get the key into the lock. He caught up to me just as I got the door open, his hand landing on the roof of the car with a heavy thud. "You're going to walk out on your family over a bad joke," he demanded, his face ruddy with anger. A bad joke. I finally got the car door open and slid inside, but he held it so I couldn't close it. Dad, she took a knife and twisted it into the deepest wound I have. And you're all defending her. Nobody's defending her. We're trying to keep the peace. She's in there sobbing, completely hysterical. Good, I said, jamming the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. Don't be so cruel, he snapped. She's your sister. She's devastated about the dress. All she can talk about is how she's going to lose the dress. Is that what you want? To ruin her wedding? His words hit me harder than Clara's joke. It wasn't about my pain. It wasn't about the betrayal. It was about the dress. About the wedding. About preserving the perfect family fantasy. I was just a line item, a check that was suddenly refusing to be cashed. I looked at him, my father, the man who was supposed to protect me. She's the one who was cruel. She took my generosity and threw it back in my face. This isn't about the money anymore, Dad. It's about respect. A respect she obviously doesn't have for me. That's ridiculous. It's dark humor. It's how kids these days talk. I'm not a kid. And that wasn't humor. It was mockery, I said, my voice hardening into something I barely recognized. You taught me to stand up for myself. This is me standing up for myself. I will not pay to have my own trauma used as a punchline in my own family. He sighed a long, weary sound of parental disappointment. Helen, for God's sake, just forgive her. Be the bigger person and pay for the dress. Don't let one stupid comment destroy your relationship with your sister. Our relationship is already destroyed, I said. She destroyed it tonight. Not me. I put the car in reverse. He finally took his hand off the door. I looked at him one last time, standing there under the porch light, his face a mixture of anger and disbelief. He didn't get it. He never would. Tell Clara, I said, my voice, as cold as the night air, that forgiveness is free. But a dream wedding dress cost $7,000. I didn't look back as I pulled out of the driveway. My phone was already buzzing in my purse. A text from Clara. Then another from my mom. Then a call. I silenced it, tossing it onto the passenger seat. They could leave all the messages they wanted. Let them call me harsh. Let them call me cruel. For the first time in 6 years, I wasn't the victim in my own story. And that felt better than any dress money could buy.
Story 4.
The phone rang for the 10th time, a hollow mocking sound in the too-quiet house. I watched the snow swirl outside the kitchen window, piling up in thick white drifts against the fence. It was beautiful and suffocating. Just like my marriage, I guess. Something had been off for months, a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Marie called it stress from work. I called it bullshit. It was in the way she'd angle her phone away from me, the way her laughter sounded forced when I walked into a room while she was texting. Little things. 1,000 tiny cuts that leave you bleeding out before you even realize you're wounded. Girls' night, she'd said, kissing me on the cheek. The kiss didn't land. It was just a press of cold lips. Rebecca's hosting. I'll probably just stay over with the storm coming in. Don't wait up. That was 8 hours ago. The storm was a full-blown blizzard now. And Marie wasn't answering her phone. Neither was Rebecca. My gut twisted. It was the same ugly knot I'd been trying to ignore for a year. The one that tightened every time she came home late, smelling of wine and a perfume that wasn't hers. Fuck this, I muttered to the empty room. I grabbed my keys and pulled on my boots. The kids were asleep upstairs. Carrie, my sweet 10-year-old girl, and 6-year-old Ben. The thought of them safe and warm in their beds was the only thing keeping me from punching a hole through the wall. They deserved a mother who came home. They deserved a father who wasn't a fool. The drive to Rebecca's was hell. My truck fishtailed on the unplowed roads, the wipers fighting a losing battle against the thick, wet snow. Every slide of the tires felt like my life skidding out of my control. Each red light was a new spike of adrenaline. What was I even doing, driving through a blizzard like a maniac because my wife won't answer her phone? I was pathetic. Or I was finally done being lied to. Rebecca lived in one of those new subdivisions on the other side of town. Big, soulless houses that all looked the same. I nearly missed hers, the numbers on the mailbox obscured by a thick crust of snow. I slammed the truck into park and left it running, headlights cutting through the swirling white. The porch light was on. I stomped up the steps, my heart hammering against my ribs, and pounded on the door. For a long moment there was nothing. Just the howl of the wind. I was about to pound on it again when the door cracked open. Rebecca stood there clutching a robe tight at her throat. Her hair was a mess, and her eyes were wide with the kind of panic she couldn't hide. "Peter, what are you doing here? It's 2 a.m. "Is Marie here?" I asked, pushing past her into the foyer. The house was warm, quiet. Too quiet. No music, no sounds of laughter or conversation. No sign of a girls' night. Yes, she's sleeping," Rebecca stammered, blocking my path to the rest of the house. "She had a little too much wine. You should just let her sleep it off." I looked right through her. "Where?" "Peter, don't. You should just go home. She'll call you in the morning." Her face was a mask of flimsy excuses. The smell of cheap lies filled the air. I saw it then. The pity in her eyes. She knew. She'd been covering for Marie this whole time. The rage that had been simmering in my gut for months finally boiled over. "Get out of my way, Rebecca." My voice was low, a gravelly sound I didn't recognize. She flinched but held her ground. "Please, just go." I shoved past her. Not hard, but enough to send her stumbling back against the wall. I didn't care. I stalked down the hallway. Living room empty. Kitchen empty except for 2 wine glasses in the sink. I headed for the stairs. "Peter, stop," she whisper-shouted from behind me. I ignored her. There was a guest room at the end of the hall upstairs. I'd helped them move a dresser into it last summer. The door was closed. I put my hand on the knob. It was cold, solid. In that split second, I had a choice. I could turn around, get back in my truck, and pretend this never happened. I could go home and keep living the lie, keep swallowing the poison because it was easier than the cure. Or I could open the door. My hand turned the knob. The room was dark, lit only by the faint gray light filtering through the window. For a second, I thought Rebecca was telling the truth. Then my eyes adjusted. 2 figures in the bed. A tangle of sheets and limbs. Marie's blonde hair was unmistakable, fanned out across the pillow. Curled around her was a man. A man who wasn't me. Something inside me didn't just break. It detonated. The world went red. I didn't shout. I didn't think. I lunged. I yanked the man out of the bed by his hair. He was bigger than me, but he was disoriented, naked, and scrambling. It didn't matter. I was pure blind rage. My fist connected with his jaw. A wet cracking sound. He crumpled to the floor. I got on top of him, my hands finding his throat, my thumbs digging into his windpipe. He gurgled, clawing at my arms. Marie was screaming. A shrill, terrified sound. "Peter, stop! Oh my God, stop!" I barely heard her. All I could see was this stranger's face contorted in fear. The man who had been in my wife's bed. In my life. A lamp crashed to the floor. Rebecca was pulling at my shoulders, shouting my name. "You're gonna kill him. Peter, get off him." Her words finally cut through the haze. I felt her nails digging into my arms as she and Marie somehow managed to haul me off him. I stumbled back, landing hard against the wall, sliding down to the floor. I was on my knees, chest heaving, knuckles split and bleeding. The man on the floor was choking, gasping for air, a dark bruise already blooming on his cheek. Rebecca was helping him up, shielding him with her body. But I wasn't looking at them. I was looking at my wife. She was huddled against the headboard, clutching a sheet to her chest. Her face was pale, streaked with tears. But it wasn't fear in her eyes. It wasn't remorse. It was something else. Something I'd seen 1,000 times but never understood until this exact moment. It was pity. She was looking at me like I was something pathetic she had scraped off her shoe. That look on her face broke the last thread holding me together. I got up, grabbed her arm, and dragged her out of that house, a sheet still tangled around her waist. I threw her in the passenger seat of my truck. The drive home was a blur of fury and snow. Words ugly and sharp filled the cab. I remember turning to look at her, my hand raised and seeing the headlights. Then a universe of screaming metal and shattering glass. The first call I made was to my parents. I was sitting in a plastic chair in the hospital waiting room, the smell of antiseptic burning my nostrils. My right hand was bandaged, my ribs ached, but I was walking. Marie wasn't. "She's alive," I said into the phone, my voice flat. Crushed shoulder, some broken ribs. They're watching for a collapsed lung. "Oh, thank God," my mom breathed. "Peter, what happened? The storm." "She wasn't at Rebecca's for a girls' night," I cut her off. "She was sleeping with someone else. I found them. We crashed on the way home." Silence. A thick, heavy stillness on the other end of the line. "I'm divorcing her," I said. "It's over." The second call was to her parents. I used the same tone, the same clipped, emotionless delivery. The facts laid out like slabs of meat on a butcher's block. Her mother started crying, babbling about forgiveness and mistakes. I hung up on her. I didn't feel rage anymore. I didn't feel anything. I was a machine, executing a protocol. The love, the warmth, the life we built, it had all been cauterized in the wreck. My lawyer, a shark named Costello my father had on retainer, didn't waste time with sympathy. He wore a suit so sharp it could cut glass, and he looked at my case like a math problem. She was unfaithful. You have proof. Witnesses, however compromised, he said, steepling his fingers. This simplifies things. We'll file for at-fault divorce. We'll get a PI to dig into her financials, her phone records. Standard procedure. He paused, looking at a checklist on his legal pad. And we'll need DNA tests for the children. I stared at him. What? Paternity tests, he clarified, as if I were a child. It's boilerplate, Peter. We have to verify paternity to settle custody and support. We don't leave any doors open for her to contest later. It's just a box we have to check. A box to check. Carrie and Ben. My kids. The idea was so absurd, so insulting it barely registered. That's not necessary. They're my kids. I'm sure they are, Costello said, his face unreadable. But the court doesn't run on certainty, it runs on proof. It's a simple cheek swab. Get it done. 2 weeks later, I was back in Costello's leather mahogany office. He slid 2 envelopes across the polished surface of his desk. He opened the first one. Benjamin Davies. Paternity confirmed. 99.99% probability. He pushed it aside. He picked up the second one, slitting it open with a silver letter opener. He read the single sheet of paper inside, and his professional mask flickered for just a second. A tiny, almost imperceptible muscle twitched in his jaw. He slid the paper over to me without a word. The black and white text was stark. Clinical. Asterisk. Subject. Carrie Davies. Asterisk. Asterisk. Conclusion. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the child. Asterisk. The words didn't make sense. I read them again. And again. Asterisk. Excluded as the biological father. Asterisk. My vision tunneled. The hum of the city outside the window faded to a dull roar in my ears. Costello was saying something, but his voice was distorted like it was coming from underwater. Carrie. My little girl. The one I taught to ride a bike, her terrified little hands gripping mine. The one who fell asleep on my chest every time we watched a movie. The scraped knees I'd bandaged, the bedtime stories I'd read, the monster checks under the bed. Her smile, which was the only thing that made sense in the world. A lie. All of it. A lie. The mediation was held in a sterile conference room. Just me, Costello, Marie, and her lawyer. She wore a black sling on her arm, a permanent reminder of that night. Her face was pale and drawn. She wouldn't look at me. I didn't speak. I just took the lab report from my briefcase and slid it across the table. She stared at it. Her lawyer, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, picked it up and read it. Her shoulders slumped. She whispered something to Marie. Marie finally looked up at me. There were no tears, no shock, just a hollowed-out resignation like a soldier who had finally been captured after a long, pointless war. Peter, She started. Don't, I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a razor. Don't you dare say you're sorry. Just answer the question. Who is he? She shook her head, a small, pathetic motion. I don't know. The air left my lungs. What do you mean you don't know? Her lawyer sighed. My client is prepared to state for the record that during the time of Carrie's conception, she was involved in multiple extramarital affairs. Multiple. The word hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't one mistake. This was a lifestyle. My entire marriage had been a sham. I wasn't her husband. I was her cover story. The stable, reliable fool who paid the mortgage and raised another man's child. How many, I heard myself ask. The question felt distant, as if someone else were speaking. Marie flinched. I don't know, Peter. A few. It didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything. I slammed my hand on the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. My daughter, the girl I have raised for 10 years, isn't mine, and you say it didn't mean anything. She times your daughter, she whispered, tears finally welling in her eyes. You're the only father she's ever known. Don't you use her to manipulate me, Costello, cut in his voice like ice. Not anymore. I was no longer in a conference room. I was at the bottom of a deep, dark ocean. The pressure was crushing me. My wife was a stranger. My daughter was a stranger's child. My life, every memory, every holiday, every family photo on the wall, it was all fake. A meticulously crafted stage play where I was the only one who didn't know his lines. I stood up my chair, scraping harshly against the floor. I looked at Marie, truly looked at her for the last time. I saw nothing. No love, no hate. Just an empty space where my wife used to be. I want you out of the house by the end of the week, I said to her, lawyer, not to her. I want full custody of Ben. She can have supervised visitation, that's it. Everything else you two can fight over the scraps. I walked out without looking back. That night, I stood in the doorway of Carrie's room. She was asleep, her breathing soft, and even her favorite stuffed bear tucked under her arm. Her face so familiar and beloved was now a painful mystery. I saw the ghost of some other man in the curve of her cheek, the shape of her nose. My heart didn't just break. It atomized. The pain was a physical thing, a jagged piece of metal lodged in my chest. I had lost my wife. I had lost my family. And now I had lost my daughter who was sleeping 20 feet away from me. I still loved her. God help me, I loved her more than my own life. But she wasn't mine. Ben was asleep in the next room. My son. My real biological son. He was the only piece of this shattered life that was still true. I had to protect him. I had to build some kind of world for him out of this smoking crater. But how? How do you explain to a 6-year-old that mommy is gone? How do you explain to your daughter that the legal papers now call you nothing? I closed her door, the soft click echoing the final brutal end of everything I had ever believed in.
Story 5.
8 years is a long time. It's long enough to build a life, a home. It's long enough to forget who you were before you met someone. Jay and I were just shy of that milestone a couple of weeks from our 8th anniversary. For most of that time, she was my rock. I wasn't an easy guy to be with in the beginning. I had my demons. Booze, mostly. Weed, too. A nasty cocktail of anxiety and depression that I tried to drown every single day. Jay saw me through the worst of it. She held my hand through withdrawals and sat with me in silence when the world was too loud. And I got better. I got sober. I went to therapy, got on the right meds, and clawed my way back to the man I was supposed to be. I got a good job, a promotion. I was stable. I was present. I was finally the partner she deserved. Or so I thought. The cracks started small. Her job was the first one. She worked the night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. For years, I begged her to switch. I miss sleeping next to you, I'd say. I just want to have a normal life with you. She always had an excuse. The pay differential is too good, Wayne. Or, I can't leave my team, they need me. We went to bed at different times, woke up at different times. Our days off rarely aligned. We were roommates who occasionally shared a bank account. Then there was the sex. Or the lack of it. It had been 6 months. 6 fucking months. Every time I tried to initiate, I'd get the hand on the chest. I'm too tired. I have a headache. I just want to sleep. It felt like I was begging for scraps of intimacy from my own girlfriend. Each rejection was a small cut, and after a while, I was bleeding out. The worst part, the thing that really twisted the knife, was how she'd use my past against me. If I brought up an issue, if I expressed that I was unhappy, her go-to move was to question my sanity. I feel like we're drifting apart, Jay. Is this your anxiety talking again? You know, you tend to overthink things. It was brilliant in a sick way. She took the biggest struggle of my life, the one she supposedly helped me overcome, and turned it into a weapon. She made me question if the problems were real or just a phantom limb from my old life. About a month ago, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I sat her down on a rare afternoon we had together. I didn't raise my voice. I just laid it all out. Jay, this isn't working, I said, my voice steady. The schedules, the lack of intimacy, the way you dismiss my feelings. I feel completely alone in this relationship. She just stared at me, her face a blank wall. No tears. No anger. Nothing. I don't know what you want me to say, she finally said, shrugging. I want you to talk to me. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me if you still want to be here. I'm here, aren't I? And that was it. The conversation was over. She got up, put on her headphones, and started cleaning the kitchen. Stonewalled. The silence in our apartment for the next few weeks was deafening. We coexisted, two ghosts haunting a life we'd built together. Then came Memorial Day weekend. She was suddenly cheerful, suggesting we go to a family friend's barbecue on Saturday. It'll be fun, she said. We need to get out of the house. I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay home and figure out how to detonate our lives with the least amount of collateral damage. But I was tired of fighting. Fine, I said. But we're going together and we're coming home together. No splitting up. Of course, she promised, kissing my cheek. It was the most affection she'd shown me in a month. The barbecue was fine. We played the part. Smiled, laughed, talked about our plans for the summer as if we had any. Around 9, I was ready to go. I found her talking with a group of her girlfriends. Hey, you about ready? I asked. She looked at her phone, then at her friends. A silent conversation passed between them. Actually, she said, not looking me in the eye, Amber and Chloe want to go get a drink at the saloon. I'm just going to go for a little bit. I'll meet you at home. My jaw tightened. Jay. We talked about this. You promised. Oh, relax, she said, waving a dismissive hand. It's one drink. I'll be home in an hour tops. Don't be controlling. Controlling. Another one of her favorite words. My old therapist would have called it projection. I just called it bullshit. Fine, I clipped out. I wasn't going to make a scene. I said my goodbyes and drove home alone, the driver's seat feeling bigger than usual. I got home, let the dogs out, and put on a movie, assuming she'd be home soon. I must have fallen asleep on the couch because I woke up with a jolt. The TV was off. The house was dead quiet. My phone screen glowed. 2:17 a.m. She wasn't home. A cold dread washed over me. I checked my phone. No texts. No missed calls. I opened the Find My app, a thing we'd set up years ago for safety. Her icon was there, but the location was stuck. Location not available. My heart started hammering against my ribs. It had never done that before. I told myself it was a glitch, a network error. But my gut, that sober, clear-headed gut I'd learned to trust, was screaming at me that something was wrong. I called her. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. I called again. This time she picked up. Hello. Her voice was wide awake, a little too bright. Music thumped faintly in the background. Jay, where are you? It's after 2. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I totally lost track of time, she said, the words slightly slurred. We left the bar and went back to Sarah's house. We were just talking. Sarah. Her parents' best friend. A woman in her late 50s. A safe answer. Plausible. It almost made sense. Sarah's, I asked, the knot in my stomach loosening just a fraction. Why didn't you text me? My phone died. It just turned back on. I'm so sorry, babe. I'll be home in a little bit, I promise. Okay, I said slowly. Just get home safe. We hung up. I sat there in the dark staring at my phone. I didn't believe her. Not a single word. I kept refreshing the Find My app, my thumb swiping down again and again. Nothing. Location not available. Location not available. Then it loaded. A single blue dot pulsed on the screen. It wasn't anywhere near Sarah's neighborhood on the north side of town. It was 10 miles south in a residential area I'd never seen before, on a street I didn't recognize. My breath hitched. My vision tunneled. It was a physical blow, like all the air had been punched out of my lungs. My thumb hovered over her name. My hands were shaking. I hit the call button. She answered on the first ring, her voice still sickeningly cheerful. Hey, is everything okay? Where are you, Jay? My voice was dangerously calm. I told you I'm at Sarah's. We're just hanging out. No, you're not, I said, the words coming out like ice chips. Your phone says you're at an apartment building on Oak Street. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Where the hell are you? The line went dead quiet. I could hear her breathing, the faint music in the background suddenly cut off. The silence stretched for an eternity. Finally, her voice came back smaller, stripped of all its fake cheer. I'm on my way home. She hung up. I sat on the couch in the pitch-black living room, my phone clutched in my hand. I didn't move. I just stared at the front door, watching her blue dot crawl across the map of the city, getting closer and closer. 30 minutes felt like a lifetime. Each minute was a new circle of hell. Then I heard it. The crunch of tires on the gravel driveway. A car door slamming shut. And finally, the faint jingle of keys at the front door. The lock turned. The door swung open. She stepped inside, shutting the door softly behind her. The click of the deadbolt echoed in the silence. She flicked on the hall light and her eyes landed on me, a silhouette on the couch. She flinched. Jesus, Wayne. You scared me. What are you doing sitting in the dark? I didn't move. You lied to me. She sighed, dropping her keys and purse on the kitchen counter. It was the sigh of a woman burdened by an overbearing partner. A performance. I didn't lie. I told you I was at Sarah's, and then I came home. It's a 10-minute drive from Sarah's house, I said, my voice flat, devoid of all emotion. It took you 35 minutes to get here. Because you weren't at Sarah's. You were on Oak Street. She turned, her face hardening. What are you talking about? Are you tracking me now? That's psychotic. It's called Find My J. We've had it for 6 years. Don't act like this is new. I stood up, my joints cracking. I felt 100 years old. You lied. Just tell me why. I didn't lie, she snapped, her voice rising. Maybe the app was wrong. You're going to trust some stupid app over me, your girlfriend of 8 years. This was her arena. Gaslighting. Making me the crazy one. The old me would have buckled, apologized, and questioned my own sanity. But the old me was dead and buried. You're right, I said calmly. Let's clear it up. Show me your Uber receipt. It'll have the pickup address. Show me it was Sarah's, and I will get on my knees and apologize for ever doubting you. Panic flickered in her eyes. Just a split second, but I saw it. I'm not showing you anything. This is insane. You're interrogating me in my own home at 3 a.m. Show me the phone, Jay. She clutched her purse to her chest. No? That was all I needed. I crossed the room in 2 strides. I didn't yell, I didn't shove. I just gently took the purse from her hands, opened it, and pulled out her phone. She reached for it, but I turned my back, holding it out of her grasp. Wayne, give me my phone, you're acting crazy? Her lock screen lit up with a notification. A text message. Not from Amber or Chloe. From a name I didn't recognize. Asterisk, Chris, you get home. Okay, tonight was amazing. Asterisk. My blood ran cold. My fingers felt clumsy as I unlocked her phone, our anniversary date. The irony was a gut punch, and tapped on the Uber app. There it was. The trip history. Picked up at 2:51 a.m. The address wasn't Sarah's. It was the exact same house on Oak Street that her location had shown. I turned the phone around and held it up for her to see. I didn't have to say a word. The screen illuminated the truth, stark and undeniable. Her face crumpled. The fake anger, the righteous indignation, it all melted away, leaving behind the ugly, plain face of guilt. Her shoulders slumped. She wouldn't look at me, her eyes fixed on the floor. Jay, I said, my voice barely a whisper. What is this? She finally looked up, her eyes glassy with tears. She hadn't earned the right to cry. Is what it looks like. The 4 words detonated the life we'd built. The shockwave threw me back and I sank onto the couch, the phone slipping from my hand and clattering onto the hardwood floor. The sound was obscene in the crushing silence. I don't remember much of what happened next. It's a blur of garbled sounds and snapshots. Her crying. Me staring at a spot on the wall. Her packing a bag. Me not saying a word to stop her. She left sometime before dawn. I heard the front door close and then there was just silence. The sun came up. The dogs, confused by the tension, came and nudged my hand. I mechanically took them out, filled their food bowls, and went back to the couch. I called my best friend Mark. "It's over," I said as soon as he picked up. She cheated. He was at my door in 20 minutes with a bag of greasy breakfast sandwiches and 2 large coffees. He didn't press for details. He just sat with me, a silent, steady presence on the other end of the couch while I stared into space and tried to remember how to breathe. He was the one who finally broke the silence. "What's the plan, man?" The plan. My mind, which had felt like a black hole, suddenly started to click into gear. Sobriety had taught me one thing. When your world is on fire, you focus on the next right step. "I need to get an STD test," I said, the words tasting like poison. Mark just nodded. "I have to figure out the lease." We're both on it. The dogs, the furniture, fuck. The sheer logistics of it all was overwhelming. "One thing at a time," he said. "First you call your parents. Then you find a therapist. We'll figure out the rest." That night, after Mark left, I did something I hadn't planned on. I typed out the whole sordid story, every last detail, and posted it on Reddit. I needed to see it in black and white. To have strangers completely removed from my life tell me I wasn't crazy. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of comments flooded in. The night shift was the first red flag. Weaponizing your mental health is classic abuser behavior. You're not psychotic, you were being gaslit. Each comment was a brick rebuilding the foundation she had systematically tried to destroy. Reading their words, I realized how many excuses I'd made, how many red flags I'd painted white. The validation wasn't just comforting. It was clarifying. It moved my certainty from 99.9% to a solid cold 100%. There was no going back. I looked around the apartment at the photos of us on the mantelpiece, the stupid throw pillows she'd bought, the life we had curated. It wasn't a home anymore. It was a crime scene. And I couldn't stay. My focus shifted from the pain of the past to the cold, hard mechanics of the future. I had to protect myself. My sobriety. My sanity. I pulled out my laptop and started searching for new apartments. I made an appointment for the test. I found the number for a therapist my doctor had recommended months ago. Each action was a step away from her, a step away from the man who let himself be lied to. The man I used to be was gone. The man I was now had to clean up the wreckage.
Story 6.
Please, Lisa. It would mean the world to me. My brother John had his puppy dog eyes on full blast. The ones he'd used to get out of trouble since he was 6. We were sitting in my small apartment, the scent of fresh paint still hanging in the air from my weekend project, and he was dropping a bomb on my wedding plans. "John, I already have 5 bridesmaids," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "My childhood best friends. My cousin, my fiance's sister. The numbers are perfect. So what's one more? For me, Sarah feels left out." Sarah. Of course. His girlfriend of 2 years. The human equivalent of a designer handbag, expensive, a little stiff, and mainly for show. I couldn't stand her. and the feeling I knew was mutual. The last time I saw her, she'd spotted my reusable grocery bags from Walmart in the backseat of my car and smirked. "Oh, Lisa," she'd said, her voice dripping with pity. "You're so practical." It wasn't a compliment. But this was my brother, my only sibling. I could see the desperation in his eyes, the frantic hope that the two most important women in his life could just pretend to get along for my sake. I sighed, a long, drawn-out sound of defeat. Fine. She can be a bridesmaid. But John, she has to actually be times a bridesmaid. She has to show up, wear the dress, and not make everything about her. His face lit up. "She will, I promise. Thank you, Lisa. You won't regret this." Spoiler alert, I would. My maid of honor, Chloe, was a saint. She added Sarah to the bridesmaids group chat without a single complaint, though I knew she felt the same way I did. The chat, Lisa's last fling, immediately blew up with excited messages. We were heading to Miami for a long weekend, and the girls were already planning. Chloe, being the organizational wizard she is, laid out the plan for the final night. "Chloe, okay ladies, final night dinner details. We're going to a super chic place on the water, so let's get glam. I'm thinking a group photo theme. Everyone wear pink. Any shade, any style, just make it pink so we look like a cohesive, fabulous squad for Lisa." The chat erupted. "Jenna, OMG love. I have the perfect hot pink dress." "Maria, found a rose gold sequin number. Does that count?" "Chloe, yes, rose gold is perfect." I watched the screen waiting. Then Sarah's little text bubble appeared. "Sarah, cute idea, Chloe. Very bubblegum." I rolled my eyes so hard I think I saw my own brain. Classic Sarah. A backhanded compliment wrapped in a dismissive little bow. But then she followed it up. "Sarah, Jenna, that dress sounds amazing. Is it the one from Revolve that?" Jenna. "Yes." "How did you know?" "Sarah, I have it in black. You'll look stunning." There it was. Undeniable proof. She saw the memo. She engaged with the memo. She knew the damn dress code was pink. I screenshotted the exchange, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. I didn't know why I did it, just a gut feeling that I'd need it later. The first 2 days in Miami were fine. Tense, but fine. Sarah mostly kept to herself, scrolling on her phone by the pool while the rest of us laughed and shared stories. She made little digs here and there, commenting on how my swimsuit was a brave choice and asking if the cheap rosé we were drinking was giving anyone else a headache. We all just ignored her, determined to not let her ruin the vibe. Then came the final night. The big dinner. We were all in our hotel suite, a tornado of hairspray, makeup palettes, and of course pink dresses. Jenna was in her hot pink mini, Maria was sparkling in rose gold, and Chloe looked incredible in a silky fuchsia slip. I'd chosen a soft blush pink gown that made me feel, for the first time in a while, like a bride. We were all giddy, taking selfies and blasting music when a text came through on the group chat. It was from Sarah. "Sarah, hey girls, so sorry. A last-minute work emergency just came up. I have to hop on a call. I'll meet you at the restaurant, but I'm going to be late. Start without me." A collective groan went through the room. Work emergency? On a Saturday night, Maria muttered, zipping up her dress. "Just be glad we get an extra hour without her," Jenna said, and we all laughed. I felt a sliver of relief. Maybe she'd just skip the dinner entirely. We could have one perfect, drama-free night. We arrived at the restaurant and it was stunning. Open air right on the water with white tablecloths and twinkling fairy lights everywhere. The hostess led our very pink-clad group to a prime table. We ordered a round of spicy margaritas and the mood was electric. For an hour, I forgot all about Sarah. We were loud, we were laughing, and I was surrounded by the women I loved most. To Lisa, Chloe toasted, holding her glass high. The most beautiful, kind, and patient bride-to-be in the world. We all clinked our glasses, and in that moment I felt pure happiness. That's when I saw her. She wasn't walking, she was striding, making an entrance. Every head in the restaurant turned to watch her. My brother's girlfriend, my bridesmaid by obligation, Sarah. She wasn't wearing pink. She was in a floor-length, backless white sequin gown. It clung to her body like a second skin shimmering under the restaurant lights. As if that wasn't enough, the bottom of the dress exploded into a cloud of white tulle, a miniature train that swept the floor behind her. And perched on top of her perfectly coiffed hair was a delicate, glittering tiara. She looked more like a bride than I did. More than I ever would. My friends' laughter died in their throats. Jenna's jaw was literally hanging open. We all just stared stunned into silence as she glided toward our table, a smug little smile playing on her lips. A waitress who had just been approaching to take our order stopped and beamed at our table, her eyes landing first on me in my pale pink, then on the radiant vision in white. "Oh, how lovely," the waitress chirped, completely oblivious. "Are we celebrating a joint bachelorette party tonight?" The waitress's cheerful voice felt like a slap. My blood ran cold, then hot. Every ounce of joy from the evening evaporated, replaced by a white-hot humming rage. A joint bachelorette party. She had turned my night, my celebration, into a spectacle starring herself. Chloe recovered first. She gave the waitress a tight, dismissive smile. "No." "Just the one," she said, gesturing pointedly at me. "For Lisa. The actual bride." The waitress's face fell, her eyes darting between me in my blush pink and Sarah in her bridal armor. "Oh, I'm so sorry. It's fine," I bit out, my voice dangerously low. Sarah finally reached the table, feigning a breathless innocence. "Sorry, I'm late. The call ran forever." "What did I miss?" She slid into the empty chair, her tulle skirt crunching against the seat. The tiara on her head caught the light and sent a tiny mocking sparkle directly into my eye. No one answered her. The silence was thick and heavy. Maria stared at Sarah's dress like it was a poisonous snake. Jenna was just slowly shaking her head, a look of pure disgust on her face. What Sarah asked, her voice laced with manufactured confusion. "Is something wrong?" That was it. I snapped. "What's wrong, Sarah?" I asked, my voice shaking with fury. "What's wrong is that you look like you're about to walk down the aisle at your own wedding." At times, my times, bachelorette party. She placed a hand on her chest, her expression a perfect mask of wounded surprise. "Oh my God, Lisa, this old thing. It's just a cocktail dress. I can't believe you'd think I was trying to upstage you." "I would never." A white sequin gown with a tulle train and a tiara as a cocktail dress? Jenna scoffed from across the table. "In what universe?" "I just wanted to look nice for your big night," Sarah insisted, her voice getting louder, playing to the nearby tables. "I feel so attacked right now." The photographer Chloe had hired for an hour arrived right then, a cheerful guy with a huge camera. "Ready for some group shots, ladies?" "Absolutely," I said, standing up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. I looked directly at Sarah. "We are. You're not in them." Her jaw dropped. For the first time, a flicker of genuine shock crossed her face. "What?" "Why not?" "Because the theme was pink," I said, my voice ice. "We're taking pink-themed photos." "I didn't get the memo," she cried, the lie slipping out so easily. "My work call was so crazy I must have missed the text." The knot of unease in my stomach that had prompted me to screenshot her message tightened into a vindicated fist. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and pulled up the image. I didn't say a word. I just turned the screen towards her. There it was in black and white. Her own words. "Cute idea, Chloe. Very bubblegum." And her follow-up discussing Jenna's pink dress from Revolve. Her face went pale. The smugness, the faux innocence. It all dissolved, leaving behind a pinched, ugly look of being caught. She stared at the phone, then at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "Get out of the way, Sarah," Chloe said, her voice leaving no room for argument. She, Jenna, and Maria stood up flanking me. We were a wall of furious pink. We walked over to a spot by the water, the photographer looking bewildered, but following our lead. Sarah was left alone at the table, a shimmering white monument to her own narcissism. We took the pictures. We smiled, we posed, we linked arms. In every shot, we were a vibrant, cohesive group, and I was the undeniable center. There was no confusing who the bride was. From the corner of my eye, I could see Sarah watching us, her arms crossed, her face a thundercloud. It was the most satisfying and miserable photo shoot of my life. The flight home was silent. Sarah sat 3 rows behind us and didn't say a word. The moment my plane landed, my phone buzzed. It was John. I ignored it, knowing what was coming. It buzzed again. And again. By the time I was in the taxi home, I had 5 missed calls and a string of furious texts. "What the hell did you do to Sarah?" She's in tears. Said you and your friends bullied her all night. "Answer your phone, Lisa." I waited until I was inside my apartment, the door locked securely behind me. I took a deep breath and called him. He picked up on the first ring. "What is wrong with you?" he yelled, his voice raw. "She flew all the way to Miami for you, and you treat her like that. You deliberately excluded her and humiliated her in front of everyone." "She humiliated me, John," I shot back, my own voice rising. "She showed up to my bachelorette dinner in a wedding dress and a tiara." "It was a white dress. So what? You don't own the color white. Sarah said you were all just jealous because she looked better than you." The accusation knocked the wind out of me. "Are you listening to yourself?" "She lied, John. She said she never got the memo about wearing pink, but she literally discussed it in the group chat. I have the receipts." "Receipts?" he scoffed. "This isn't a courtroom, Lisa. It's our family. You've turned into a complete bridezilla. This whole wedding has made you crazy and cruel." The word bridezilla hung in the air between us. It was the ultimate insult. The one designed to dismiss a woman's valid anger as hormonal hysteria. All the frustration, the hurt, the years of swallowing Sarah's little digs for his sake, it all came pouring out. "Fine," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "If I'm a bridezilla, then I'll be one. Sarah is no longer a bridesmaid. She's uninvited from the wedding." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Then a low, menacing reply. "If she's not welcome, then neither am I." He hung up. I stood in my living room, phone in my hand shaking. My brother, my only sibling, was choosing her. He was choosing the woman who deliberately tried to ruin my celebration over his own sister. The next day, a text landed in the family group chat from John. My mom, my dad, me. "For your information, Sarah and I won't be at Father's Day brunch this weekend. We don't feel comfortable being around people who think it's okay to bully and exclude family." My mother called me instantly frantic. I explained everything, my voice cracking as I recounted the white dress, the tiara, the lie. I sent her the screenshot. She was horrified, but also devastated. "Your brother is just blinded by her honey. Please, can't you just be the bigger person and apologize to smooth things over?" "Apologize? For what?" "For not letting her walk all over me." Now I'm sitting here staring at the Father's Day card I bought for my dad, wondering if he'll be celebrating it without his son. The wedding is in 2 months. John and I haven't spoken. I heard from a cousin that things between him and Sarah are strained, that he can't understand why she won't just let it go. Part of me feels a grim satisfaction. The other part, a much larger part, is hollowed out with grief. I stood up for myself, but in doing so, I might have just detonated my entire family. and a tiny, insidious voice in the back of my head keeps asking times, "Was it worth it? Did you go too far?" Asterisk.
Story 7.
I've always been the guy who fixes things. Leaky faucet, bad investment, broken heart, didn't matter. I'd roll up my sleeves and make it right. So when my son Leo sat me down at the kitchen table looking like he was about to confess to a felony, I prepared to fix his life. He was 18, a good kid with a bright future. "Dad," he started, his voice cracking. "Kate's pregnant." I just nodded. No yelling, no panic. Panic doesn't solve problems. "Okay," I said, my voice even. "First we make a plan." And I did. They were kids living with their respective parents, working part-time jobs at the mall. They couldn't raise a baby in their childhood bedrooms. So I moved them in with me. It was a big house. Way too big since my wife passed, and the quiet was starting to get to me anyway. I gave them the entire second floor. Kate was a sweet girl, if a little shy. Scared mostly. Her own parents were less than thrilled, offering a lot of "I told you so" and not much else. I stepped in. I wanted them to know they weren't alone. This baby wasn't a mistake. It was a new chapter. My big project one was the nursery. The room next to theirs was just collecting dust, so I went to work. I didn't just slap some paint on the walls. I mean, I did that a nice soft gray, but I did everything else too. I spent a weekend assembling a top-of-the-line crib, a matching dresser with a changing table on top, and a glider rocking chair that cost more than my first car. I hung little animal prints on the walls and installed blackout curtains. When I was done, it looked like something out of a magazine. Kate cried when she saw it. Real happy tears. "Gabriel, you didn't have to do all this," she whispered, running her hand over the smooth wood of the crib. "Of course I did," I said, clapping Leo on the shoulder. "I'm going to be a grandpa. This is what we do." They were good kids. They saved their money, Leo got a promotion at the electronics store, and Kate found a remote data entry job she could do from home. 6 months in, they told me they'd found their own place, a small 2-bedroom apartment about 15 minutes away. I'll admit, a part of me was sad to see them go, but I was bursting with pride. This was the goal. I had given them the foundation, and now they were building their own life on it. I helped them move, of course, hauling boxes and setting up the nursery furniture I'd bought, making sure it looked perfect in their new home. Everything was going smoothly until the final month. The doctors found an issue with the baby's position breech, they called it. A C-section was scheduled for the 15th. Leo called me with the news. "Dad, they set the date. Tuesday, the 15th, 8 a.m. "Got it," I said already, pulling up the calendar on my phone. "I'll clear my schedule. I'll be there by 7. Do you need me to bring coffee?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. A weirdly long one. "Dad, hang on." I heard some muffled whispering, and then Kate's voice came on the phone. It was lighter than Leo's, but it had a strange tension to it. "Hi, Gabriel." "Hey, Kate." "Getting excited?" "Yeah, definitely." A little nervous, she said. "Listen about visitors at the hospital. Leo and I have been talking, and we've decided we don't want anyone there." I laughed. "Right. You don't want a whole parade of your high school friends coming through." "I get it. Don't worry. It'll just be me." "No," she said, and the word was suddenly sharp. "I mean no one. Except my sister Sarah. She's going to be my support person." The gears in my head screeched to a halt. "What are you talking about? I'm the grandfather." "I'm not a visitor." "I know, and we're so grateful for everything. But I'm going to be recovering from major surgery. I want those first couple of days to be just for us to bond as a family. And, well, to figure out breastfeeding, I need my privacy." Privacy. The word felt like a slap. After everything I'd done, the room, the furniture, the financial support, the goddamn emotional stability I'd provided when her own family wouldn't. She wanted times privacy, times from me. Kate, that doesn't make any sense, I said, trying to keep my voice reasonable. I'm not going to be watching you breastfeed. I just want to meet my grandson. There's another thing too, she said, her voice getting even more formal. The hospital is very strict about who can be around the baby. Have you had your Tdap booster recently? For whooping cough. I scoffed. A shot, that's what this is about. I can go get a shot, Kate. That's not a problem. It was just one more ridiculous hurdle she was throwing up. One more excuse. It's not just the shot, Gabriel, she said, her frustration finally showing. This is a C-section. It's a serious operation. I'm going to be in pain and I'm not going to be up for entertaining. This is where I lost my patience. I'd seen this surgery in movies 100 times. I knew what it was. She was being dramatic. Entertaining. Who's asking you to entertain? It's a C-section, Kate, not open heart surgery. They make an incision, they take the baby out, they stitch you up. You'll be fine. It's not like you'll be bleeding all over the place or anything. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. It was so cold I felt it through the phone. I knew I'd messed up, but I couldn't figure out how. I was just stating facts. I decided to offer a solution. A perfectly logical compromise. Look, I said, my voice softening. I get it. You want your space. Fine. How about this? You can stay in your room all private for as long as you want. Leo can just bring the baby out to the waiting room for me. I'll hold him for 10 minutes, meet my grandson, and then I'll leave. You won't even have to see me. I waited, proud of my brilliant, simple fix. It gave her exactly what she said she wanted while still letting me have the one thing I cared about. Another long, terrifying silence stretched out. When Kate finally spoke, her voice was completely different. It was low, tight, and vibrating with a fury I had never heard from her before. Let me be perfectly clear, Gabriel. Each word was a chip of ice. Nobody is taking my newborn baby away from me. Not for a second. Not you. Not anyone. The line went dead. Not a hang-up slam, just a cold final click. I stared at my phone, the silence roaring in my ears. Fury, hot and pure, burned through me. This wasn't about privacy. This was a power play. I immediately redialed. Leo picked up on the first ring, his voice tentative. Dad. Put her back on the phone, I commanded. She's not going to. I don't give a damn what she's going to do, Leo. I am your father. I gave you a roof over your head when you had nowhere else to go. I built a nursery for your son with my own 2 hands. I have earned the right to meet my grandson. The words tumbled out, each one coated in the acid of betrayal. It's not about earning anything, Dad. It's her body. It's her recovery. Her body, I laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. This is what this is. She's a narcissist, Leo. She's making this all about her. What about you? What about your father? Do we not matter? Are we just walking ATMs to you? I didn't just give you money. I gave you a foundation. I bought you stability. And now I'm being treated like some infectious disease. That's not fair, he shot back, his voice finally gaining some steel. She's not a narcissist. She's scared. She's about to have surgery, and she wants comfort and privacy, not a performance. A performance, 10 minutes. I asked for 10 minutes to hold the baby I practically paid for. I feel completely and utterly exploited. I poured my heart, my time, and my money into setting you two up for success, and this is the thanks I get. Banned from the hospital. You're just a poor boy caught in the middle, letting her run the whole show. Stop. The word was quiet, but absolute. Don't call me a poor boy, and don't talk about my wife like that. My wife. He'd never called her that before. The word cemented them into a unit, a fortress, with the drawbridge pulled up, leaving me outside. Unbelievable, I muttered, shaking my head at the kitchen wall. She's got you completely brainwashed. No, Leo said, his voice heavy with a finality that chilled me to the bone. She's got my back. And I've got hers. We'll call you when we're home and ready for visitors. He hung up. I stood there, phone in my hand, vibrating with a rage so profound it left me breathless. They were ungrateful. She was manipulative. He was weak. I was the victim here, the generous patriarch being cast aside by a selfish girl who had poisoned my son's mind. Fine. If they wouldn't listen to reason, maybe the rest of the world would. I stormed to my laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. I found a forum, one of those Am I the Asshole places. I laid it all out, the unexpected pregnancy, how I took them in the thousands I spent on the nursery, the apartment, the pride I felt. I painted myself as the supportive, heroic grandfather. Then I described Kate's sudden, inexplicable demand for privacy, her ridiculous excuse about a booster shot, and her refusal of my perfectly reasonable compromise. I framed her as ungrateful and controlling. I called my son a poor boy caught in the middle. I hit post and waited for the validation to roll in. It didn't. The first comment appeared within a minute. YTA. C-sections are major abdominal surgery. Your comment that she wouldn't be bleeding is one of the most ignorant things I've ever read. Another followed. YTA. A nurse here. Post-Gabriel C-section patients bleed heavily. It's called lochia. They have a catheter. They're on narcotics. And they're trying to learn how to feed a baby with a 6-inch incision in their abdomen. The last thing she needs is her overbearing father-in-law demanding a meet and greet. The post came in like a tidal wave, a deluge of acronyms and brutal honesty. YTA, YTA, Major YTA. You didn't give them a gift. You bought a ticket. Your generosity came with strings attached. And now you're pissed they won't let you cash it in. She's not a narcissist for having boundaries. You're an entitled asshole for trying to stomp all over them. Poor boy caught in the middle. He's a father. He's a partner. His job is to support his recovering wife and newborn, not cater to his daddy's hurt feelings. He's not caught in the middle. He's exactly where he's supposed to be, on their side. Each comment was a punch to the gut. I read them for an hour, my righteous anger slowly deflating, replaced by a cold, creeping shame. They were right. All of them. My ignorance about the C-section was appalling. My compromise wasn't a compromise. It was a demand to separate a mother from her baby moments after birth. My generosity wasn't selfless. It was a transaction. Why had I been like this? Staring at the screen at the unanimous verdict from hundreds of strangers, the truth finally broke through the wall of anger I'd built around myself. It wasn't about entitlement, not really. It was about terror. 2 years ago, I was in a hospital waiting room just like the one I'd planned to be in for Leo. My wife Eleanor was in labor with our second child, a girl we were going to name Chloe. There were complications. Preeclampsia, they said. It happened fast. 1 minute I was expecting to meet my daughter, the next a grim-faced doctor was telling me they couldn't stop the bleeding. I lost them both. I never fixed it. I couldn't. I just stood there useless while my world ended. This time with Kate and Leo, I thought I could control it. I could provide, plan, and protect. I could be there on site ready to fix anything that went wrong. My desperate need to be at that hospital wasn't about meeting my grandson. It was an irrational, deep-seated terror that if I wasn't there, I would lose them too. My control wasn't about power. It was about panic. The shame was absolute. I hadn't been a supportive father. I had been a bully terrorizing two scared kids because I couldn't face my own ghosts. My hands trembled as I typed out an update to my post. Update. You're all right. I am the asshole. No question. I read every single comment, and you've shown me something I was refusing to see. I was wrong, entitled, and my behavior was inexcusable. There's no excuse, but there is a reason. 2 years ago, my wife and infant daughter died from complications during childbirth. I was in the waiting room when it happened. I think I've been driven by a terrible fear that I can't explain, and I took it out on my son and his girlfriend. I tried to control their birth experience because I had no control over my wife's death. It's not their burden to carry, it's mine. I'm going to call my son and apologize. I'm going to a clinic tomorrow to get my Tdap booster. And then I'm going to wait until they are ready. Until they invite me. Thank you for the wake-up call. I closed the laptop. The house was silent again, but it felt different now. The quiet wasn't empty, it was heavy with the weight of my mistakes. I had one more thing to fix. But this time it was myself.
Story 8. My name is Barbara, but you could call me Ben's sister. And everyone in my house would know who you were talking about. My actual name is just a placeholder, a word my parents use when they need a free babysitter. It's always been this way. My brother Ben is autistic. Not the quirky genius kind you see in movies. The screaming, hitting, can't handle a wrinkle in his sock kind. And my entire life has been shrink-wrapped around his needs, his schedule, his meltdowns. My 5th grade choir concert, Mom missed it because Ben refused to wear anything but his Batman pajamas, and she had to wrestle him for an hour. I remember standing on the risers, a stupid red bow, and my hair scanning the crowd for her face. Instead, I found Mrs. Davis and my best friend Rachel's mom, who gave me a huge thumbs up and mouthed, "You were amazing." She had a bouquet of carnations for me afterward. My mom handed me a cold slice of pizza when I got home and said Ben finally calmed down. When I made the varsity soccer team as a freshman, Dad was out of town for work. Mom was supposed to take me to the first practice. I waited by the door, cleats tied, shin guards digging into my calves for 45 minutes. Finally, I called Rachel, choking back tears. Mrs. Davison picked me up 10 minutes later, no questions asked. She was at every single one of my home games that season, screaming my name from the bleachers. My own mother never saw me play. Not once. The worst was Disneyland. I was 10. It was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime. I'd saved up my allowance for a year to buy my own set of sparkly mouse ears. We were there for maybe 4 hours before the sensory overload sent Ben into a full-blown thrashing on the asphalt tantrum because Goofy's wave was too big. So we went back to the hotel. Dad took Ben into their room to try and de-escalate, which left me with Mom and hours. "You'll just have to stay here with me, Barb," she said, not even looking at me, as she drew the blackout curtains. "We can't risk setting him off again." For 3 days I was a prisoner in the Grand Californian. I could hear the fireworks. I could smell the churros. I watched other kids running down the hallway in their swimsuits, laughing on their way to the pool. I just sat on the scratchy hotel bedspread, staring at the paisley pattern until it blurred while Mom watched daytime TV and fielded frantic calls from Dad. The mouse ears I bought sat on the nightstand, their sequins mocking me. We drove home without ever going back to the park. Mom called it a necessary sacrifice. I called it hell. So when Rachel came to school 2 weeks ago, vibrating with excitement, I was prepared for the usual letdown. "My parents are taking us to Disney World for spring break," she announced, "and they want to know if you can come. All expenses paid. Our treat." My stomach did a sick little flip. Disney. The word alone tasted like hotel carpet and regret. "No way, Rach. My parents would never." "Just ask," she insisted. "My mom already has the ticket confirmation. It's a 5-day park hopper. She said she refuses to let your only Disney memory be that nightmare trip." For once, a celestial body aligned in my favor. Mom was at one of Ben's specialist appointments, and Dad was working from home. I found him in his office staring at a spreadsheet, and the words just tumbled out. I told him about the offer from the Davisons, bracing for the inevitable "we'll see," or "what about Ben?" He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. He looked tired. He always looked tired. "The Davisons are good people," he said quietly. "Yeah, Barb. You should go. You deserve a real vacation." He signed the school permission slip on the spot. It was done. It was real. For 2 weeks, I lived on a cloud. Rachel and I planned our park days down to the minute. I packed and repacked my suitcase. I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in years: hope. Mrs. Davison was my real mom. Rachel, my real sister. This was my real family, and I was finally getting a do-over. Tonight, I was laying out my outfits on my bed, a Disney World map spread open like a sacred text. I had my new mouse ears, a sleek black pair, not the sparkly pink ones from my childhood, sitting on my pillow. The door was cracked open, and I could hear the low hum of the TV downstairs where Dad was watching the game. That's when I heard the soft padding of footsteps in the hall. My bedroom door creaked open. It was Ben. He was holding his worn-out iPad, the one he used for his communication apps. He hardly ever came into my room. It was my one sanctuary, the only space in the house that wasn't calibrated to his sensory needs. He pointed a shaky finger at the map on my bed. His eyes, wide and unblinking, darted from the illustration of Cinderella's castle to my face. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. The app on his iPad did it for him, its robotic female voice slicing through the quiet room. Go to Disney. My blood ran cold. I'd been so careful. I'd hidden the brochures, talked to Rachel in whispers on the phone. How did he find out? Ben's face began to crumple. The first sound escaped his lips, a low guttural whine that was the prelude to every storm. He pointed at the map again, then at himself. Ben. Go to Disney. The robotic voice was more insistent now. No, Ben. I said, my own voice, barely a whisper. This is my trip. With Rachel. That was the wrong thing to say. The whine escalated into a piercing shriek. He dropped the iPad, the plastic clattering against the hardwood floor. His hands flew to his ears, and he started rocking back and forth, his shrieks turning into rhythmic, choked sobs. No. No, Ben, go to Disney. Ben, go. The TV downstairs abruptly went silent. I heard the scrape of a chair, then heavy, urgent footsteps on the stairs. My door flew open so hard it banged against the wall. It was my mother. Her face was a thundercloud, her eyes skipping right over Ben's thrashing form on my floor and landing on me with the force of a physical blow. She didn't have to say a word. I saw it all in that one look, the blame, the fury, the years of resentment bubbling to the surface. The dream was over. The war was about to begin. What did you do? The words were ice. She didn't kneel to comfort Ben, who was now pulling at his own hair and slamming the back of his head against my dresser with a sickening rhythm. She just stood in the doorway, a sentinel of my guilt. Nothing. He came in here. He saw the map. You flaunted it in his face, she hissed, finally moving. But only to step between me and Ben, shielding him from my sight, as if I were the monster. You knew this would happen. You were selfish. I was in my own room. I shot back, my voice cracking. Downstairs, I heard my dad's heavy sigh and the click of the TV turning off for good. He was coming. "This is everyone's house," Barbara Mom said, her voice dangerously low as she tried to pry Ben's hands from his hair. "You don't get your own private world. Not when your brother needs." She trailed off, wrestling with him. He let out another shriek and tried to bite her arm. "Needs what?" I demanded, my hands clenched into fists. "Needs my entire life. Needs my vacation." "That's it," she snapped, her head whipping around to face me, her eyes blazing. "The trip is off. You are not going to Florida." The floor fell out from under me. What Dad already said I could go. He signed the form. Well, I'm unsigning it, she yelled, her voice finally matching the volume of Ben's wails. "We're going on a family trip. All of us. We'll drive to Washington, D.C. We'll see the monuments. A 14-hour car ride with Ben. Stuck in a metal box. Endless loops of his favorite 5 songs on the stereo. The smell of fast food. Bags. Stopping at every other rest stop. Because the hum of the tires was too loud or too quiet. It was Disneyland all over again. But worse. It was a punishment. I'm not going. I said the words, feeling alien and powerful in my mouth. "Oh, you're going," she said, a cruel little smile touching her lips. "Because this family does things together. This family does things for Ben," I screamed, the last thread of my control snapping. "My entire life is one long sacrifice for him, and I'm done." "He can't help it," she screamed back. "He's your brother. He's younger than you and he has autism. His feelings are more important right now." There it was. The truth I had swallowed my entire life finally said out loud. Not a sacrifice, but a hierarchy. And I was at the bottom. Something inside me didn't just break. It detonated. "I don't care," the shriek ripped out of my throat, raw and full of a hate that scared even me. Ben flinched, his own cries momentarily silenced by the sheer venom in my voice. Mom stared, her mouth agape. "I don't care about his feelings. I don't care that he has autism. What about me? What about my feelings for once in my goddamn life? I hate this house. I hate you. And I wish he was never born." The final words hung in the air, thick and poisonous. I said them right to Ben's face. His wide, terrified eyes locked on mine. The tantrum rebooted, but this time it was different. It was a sound of pure terror, a howling, animalistic grief that echoed off the walls. He scrambled away from me, crab walking backward until he hit the hallway, where he curled into a ball, shrieking my words back at me in a garbled, frantic mimic. "Never born. Never born. See what you did?" My mother's voice was a whisper of pure loathing. She advanced on me, her finger pointing at my face. "You are a rude, ungrateful, monstrous brat. I hear a girl who's at her breaking point." My dad was standing behind her in the doorway, his face grim. He looked ancient. "Stay out of this, Mark," my mother warned, not turning around. "No," he said, his voice quiet but absolute. "I won't." He stepped into the room, his eyes finding mine. There wasn't anger in them. There was a deep, soul-crushing sadness, and something else I'd never seen before, understanding. "What you said was a terrible thing, Barb. You can't ever take that back." I flinched, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. But I know why you said it, he continued, his gaze shifting to my mother. I grew up with 2 brothers on the spectrum, Helen. Remember I told you about it. I spent my entire childhood walking on eggshells, making myself smaller so they could be comfortable. My parents called it keeping the peace. It wasn't peace. It was erasure. My mother was silent, rigid. He looked back at me. Your mother is right. This family does things for Ben. It has to a point. But it's been too much for too long. We let it happen. I let it happen. He took a deep breath. You're going to Disney World. The discussion is over. Mark, you can't be serious, Mom whirled on him. After what she just said to her brother. Because of what she just said, he corrected her, his voice firm. Because we pushed her to a place where she would say something that cruel. That's on us. She's going. He walked out, leaving my mother standing there. Her face a mask of disbelief and fury. She looked from me to the sobbing heap of her son in the hall, and without another word she turned and followed him, slamming our parents' bedroom door so hard a picture fell off my wall. The house fell into a war zone's tense silence, punctuated only by Ben's muffled sobs from downstairs and the furious low murmur of my parents' argument through the wall. I sank onto my bed, my body trembling. The guilt was a physical weight in my chest, a hot stone of shame for the words I'd flung at my brother. I'd meant them in that white-hot second. And that was the most horrible part. But underneath the guilt, a strange, unfamiliar feeling bloomed. Relief. Hot, clean, and sharp. My dad's words times. It was erasure times played over and over in my head. He saw me. After all these years of feeling invisible, he had finally truly seen me. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a text from Mrs. Davison. Asterisk. Everything okay for Friday? Rach is about to explode with excitement. We're packed and ready to pick you up, asterisk. I stared at the text, then at my half-packed suitcase, my sleek black mouse ears sitting on top like a crown. My mother's silent fury radiated through the floorboards. Ben's whimpering was a constant, painful reminder of the bomb I'd just detonated. The fracture in my relationship with my mother felt like a chasm, deep and likely permanent. But my dad's words had built a bridge over it. I picked up the phone, my thumbs moving with a newfound certainty. Asterisk, see you Friday. I can't wait. Asterisk. I was going. I was leaving the war zone behind. I was going to Disney World with my real family, and for the first time, my own happiness felt less like a selfish dream and more like a necessary sacrifice. My own. Story 9.
My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, the screen lighting up with a name I still haven't managed to delete: Sarah. 4 years since the divorce, and the sight of it still ties a cold, hard knot in my gut. I let it go to voicemail. I already knew what she wanted. I was halfway to her house anyway. Another emergency. That was the term she used. Mark, her husband, her times first times husband, and now her times current times husband, had another appointment. Or a bad reaction to treatment. Or he just felt weak. The reasons were always vague, but they always ended with me getting in my car to pick up our son, Tony. Tony is 6. He's the only good thing that came out of my 2-year flashbang of a marriage to Sarah. When I met her, she was a single mom of 2, supposedly escaping a toxic marriage to a guy named Mark. I was the good guy, the stable one. I fell for her, for the kids, for the whole ready-made family thing. We had Tony, life felt real. Then one day it wasn't. She started coming home late. smelling of a cologne that wasn't mine. The usual story. The gut punch twist was who it was, Mark. The toxic ex she'd supposedly left in the dust. She didn't just cheat. She went back. She blew up my life, our son's life, to rebuild her old one. Her own parents, who had adored me, were so disgusted they disowned her. They still call me on Tony's birthday. They don't speak to their own daughter. Now, 4 years later, points or just shitty luck came for Mark. Cancer. The bad kind. And suddenly, the guy who broke up my marriage needed his wife by his side 24/7. And I, the guy they betrayed, became the reliable backup plan. For the last few months, I've been playing the part of the bigger man. Of course I can take Tony, I'd say. Just let me know when. I did it for my son. Only for him. He didn't deserve to see his mom stressed, or his world in chaos. My world could handle it. I pulled onto her street. The lawn was overgrown, a plastic tricycle lying on its side like a casualty of war. I could hear the chaos before I even knocked. A baby screaming, the bass-heavy thud of some video game, and a high-pitched MOM that sounded more like an accusation than a request for help. The door flew open before my knuckles hit the wood. Sarah stood there looking like a ghost. Her hair was a mess, dark circles pooled under her eyes, and her shirt had a fresh stain on it that looked suspiciously like baby spit up. Felix. Thank God, she breathed, her voice raw. Behind her, the scene was exactly what I'd heard from the driveway. Her two older kids from her marriage to Mark, a boy and a girl on the edge of their teens, were glued to the TV controllers in hand, completely oblivious. On the floor in a bouncy seat, one of the babies, the two new ones she'd had since getting back with Mark, was wailing its head off. The other was probably upstairs, adding to the symphony. "Hey," I said, my eyes scanning for my son. "Where's Tony?" "He's in his room." "Getting his bag," she said, wringing her hands. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Felix, you are a lifesaver. I mean it. I don't know what I'd do." "It's fine, Sarah." "He's my son. Where do you need to be?" "The hospital. Mark had a bad night. They want to run some more tests." She finally looked at me, and her eyes were brimming with a desperate, pleading exhaustion that almost times made me feel sorry for her. Just then, Tony barreled out of the hallway, a small Spider-Man backpack slung over his shoulder. "Dad." The knot in my gut loosened. I knelt down, and he crashed into me, all 6 years of him smelling like kid shampoo and graham crackers. "Hey, buddy, you ready for a guy's night?" "Yeah, can we get pizza?" "Is the sky blue?" I laughed, ruffling his hair. I stood up, holding his small hand in mine, ready to make our escape. "All right, Sarah. Keep me updated. I can keep him through the weekend if you need." "Wait," she said, her voice suddenly tight. I stopped my hand on the doorknob. She took a deep breath, like she was about to jump off a cliff. The screaming baby chose that exact moment to ramp up its volume, a piercing shriek that vibrated through the floor. The tweens didn't even flinch. I was wondering, she started, her gaze darting from me to the chaotic living room and back again. "You've been so good about all this. About taking Tony." "He's my son," I repeated, my tone a little flatter this time. I had a bad feeling about where this was going. A very bad feeling. I know. It's just, you're already here. Your car is right there." I just stared at her, waiting. The air grew thick. Tony squeezed my hand, sensing the shift. "The thing is," she said, the words tumbling out in a rush, "Mark's mom was supposed to come watch the others, but her car broke down, and my friends aren't answering, and I can't take all 4 of them to the hospital waiting room. It's just not possible. And I really asterisk, need to be there for him." She finally locked eyes with me, a terrifying mix of hope and shame swirling in their depths. So she whispered, her voice cracking, "Since you're already taking one, I was hoping you could just, She gestured vaguely at the chaos behind her, at the screaming baby, the zoned-out tweens at the upstairs where another baby was presumably waiting. Take them all. The question hung in the air, thick and suffocating. A screaming baby, a silent TV, and her impossible request. For a second, I thought I misheard. My brain just couldn't process the sheer, unmitigated audacity. I felt a laugh bubble up in my chest, a raw, incredulous bark of a laugh that I had to choke back down. Tony squeezed my hand again, harder this time. Dad? I looked from Sarah's desperate face to the two tweens on the couch who hadn't even registered my presence, and then to the wailing infant in the bouncy seat. All of them. She wanted me to take all of them. No, I said. The word was flat. Cold. A stone dropping into a well. Sarah flinched as if I'd slapped her. What, Felix, please? It's just for a few hours. No, Sarah, I repeated, my voice harder this time. I'm here for Tony. He's my son. He is my responsibility. I gestured with my free hand toward the chaos behind her. They are not. But you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. I cut her off the dam of the bigger man persona finally cracking. I understand that times he times is your husband. And those are times his times, children. This is the family you chose. You blew up our family for this one. Her face crumpled. Tears welled in her eyes, the ones that used to work on me every single time. That's not fair. He's sick, Felix. He could be dying. And that's a terrible situation, I said, and I meant it. I wouldn't wish cancer on my worst enemy, but the sympathy ended there. But his illness doesn't magically make his 4 other children my problem. I'm not the backup plan for the life you built after you cheated on me. The words were brutal. I could see them land. She recoiled, her mouth opening and closing with no sound coming out. What about the child support I pay you? I asked, my voice low and dangerous. Tony is with me half the time now. More even. I know for a fact that money isn't all going to his expenses. Use that. Hire a babysitter. That's what it's for. I can't, she wailed, the desperation turning into a pathetic sob. Nobody will help me. My parents won't even take my calls. All my old friends, they sided with you. I have no one, Felix. You're it. You're all I have left. The statement was so profoundly twisted that it almost knocked the wind out of me. I was her last resort. The man whose heart she'd ripped out and stomped on was now the only person she could turn to. The irony was a bitter acid in my throat. I looked down at Tony, who was watching this exchange with wide, confused eyes. This was not for his ears. That's a problem you created, Sarah, I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper. I pulled Tony closer to my leg. You need to solve it. We're leaving. I turned the doorknob, pulling my son with me out into the cool evening air. I didn't look back. I buckled Tony into his car seat, the silence in the car a deafening contrast to the circus of misery in that house. As I pulled away from the curb, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Sarah was still standing in the doorway, a lone, pathetic figure swallowed by the shadows of the home she'd chosen over me. For a moment, a wave of something dark and satisfying washed over me. Revenge. It tasted like cold, clean air after 4 years of breathing smoke. But it didn't last. By the time we were on the freeway, the guilt had started to creep in. It began as a dull ache behind my ribs and spread thick and heavy like tar. Tony was chattering away in the back, oblivious. Can we get pepperoni, Times, and thyme sausage, Dad? You got it, buddy, I said, my voice sounding hollow to my own ears. I had just left a woman the mother of my child in an impossible situation. Her husband has cancer. She's overwhelmed alone and breaking down. And I, the one person who could have helped. had looked her in the eye and said, "Not my problem." What kind of a person does that? A crap person, that's who. A petty, bitter man holding a 4-year-old grudge so tight he'd let it strangle his own decency. The children are innocent in all of this. The tweens, the babies. They didn't ask for any of it. I could have just taken them. It would have been a chaotic night, sure, but I could have handled it. I could have been the bigger man for real this time. But I wasn't. I was the man who said no. We got the pizza, went home, and put on a superhero movie. I wrestled with Tony on the rug, built a Lego tower, and read him 2 bedtime stories. I did all the normal happy dad things, but my mind was a million miles away, stuck in that cluttered doorway. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. The raw, pleading desperation. The utter defeat. When I said no. After Tony was asleep, I sank onto the couch, the silence of my own house pressing in on me. My house was clean. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was everything her house wasn't. And I felt disgusting for it. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over her name. Should I call her back? Tell her I'd made a mistake, that I'd come get the kids? Then the other thought, the cold and calculating one, slithered back in. I thought about the sheer mind-bending audacity of her request when you stripped it down to its core. Asterisk. The guy I cheated on you with is dying. Will you please raise his children for the night? Asterisk. And what happens next? What happens when Mark doesn't get better? He's got the bad kind of cancer, she said, the kind people don't walk away from. If I say yes tonight, what happens in a month? Or a year? Do I become the default dad? The go-to solution every time things get hard? Do I end up raising the 5 children of the man who destroyed my life? Just because I was too guilty to say no the first time. The thought sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't about one night. This was about the rest of my life. I was drawing a line, not just in the sand, but in concrete. I needed a reality check. I needed to know if I was a monster or if I was just a man trying to protect himself. I opened my browser and typed in the address for a website I'd only ever read for entertainment. I clicked Create Post. My fingers flew across the screen, the whole sordid story pouring out of me. The cheating, the divorce, her family disowning her, the cancer, tonight's request. I typed it all, every last humiliating detail. I stared at the title for a long time, trying to phrase it right. Finally, I typed Times, am I the bad guy for refusing to babysit my ex-wife's 4 other kids after she left me for their father? Asterisk. I hit post and watched it go live. Then I leaned back, my heart pounding in my chest, and waited for the internet to tell me what kind of man I really was.
Story teen.
It started as these things so often do, with a name from the past. Alex? Guess who just moved to the city? Chloe asked over dinner 2 weeks ago. She was pushing pasta around her plate, her tone a little too bright, a little too casual. I took a sip of my beer. I have no idea. Alex, she said. The name just hung there in the air between us. Alex. Her college boyfriend. The one she dated for 3 years. The one whose shadow always felt like it was somewhere in the room. Oh, I said. Wow. Small world. Yeah, he got a job with that big architecture firm downtown. He texted me this morning to let me know. She finally looked up from her plate, gauging my reaction. And I asked, keeping my voice level. And nothing, she said a little too quickly. He just wanted to say hi. See if I wanted to grab a coffee and catch up sometime. I nodded slowly. Okay. Don't do that, she said, her defensiveness flaring. It's just coffee, Dan. We were a huge part of each other's lives for a long time. It would be weird times, not times to see him. I held up my hands. I didn't say anything. If you want to get coffee, get coffee. But what I was thinking was times. He just moved to a brand new city, and the first person he calls is his ex times. My gut tightened, but I swallowed it down with my beer and forced a smile. I trusted her. Or I told myself I did. For 2 weeks, it was just a low hum in the background. A non-issue. Then this morning she mentioned he'd been texting her again, pushing to see her. He's being so insistent, she'd said with a nervous laugh. He doesn't know anyone here, I guess. The warning bells didn't just ring. They clanged. Around 5:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Chloe. Hey, you, she said. Her voice was upbeat, normal. The sound of her was a comfort, and for a second, the anxiety from the morning melted away. Hey, babe. How was work? I asked, leaning back in my office chair. A total marathon. I'm just packing up now. I heard the familiar sounds of her zipping her bag and clicking her keyboard. Listen, I'm going to swing by the gym on my way home. Just need to run for a bit and sweat this day out, you know. Sounds like a plan, I said. Want me to order some Thai for later? Ooh, yes, please. Penang curry. I should be home by like 8 at the latest. I'll text you when I'm leaving the gym. Okay. Love you. Love you too, she said and hung up. A perfectly normal phone call, a perfectly normal plan. There was absolutely no reason for the unease coiling in my stomach. I got home, ordered the food, and put on some TV. 8 o'clock came and went. Then 8:30. I texted her times. Hey, everything okay? Food's here. Asterisk. No reply. At 9:15, my phone lit up. A text from her. But it wasn't her usual style. No emojis, no exclamation points, none of the warmth she always poured into her messages. It was just 5 sterile words. Asterisk. So tired. Going to bed. Night. Asterisk. My blood went cold. That wasn't Chloe. Not the Chloe I knew. I hit call immediately. It rang 3 times before she picked up. Hello, she answered, her voice sounding groggy like she'd been asleep. It was a good performance. I'll give her that. Hey, you okay? That was an abrupt text. Yeah, sorry, she mumbled. The workout just totally drained me. I got home and basically collapsed. I listened. Not just to her words, but to the space times, around times, her words. There was an echo. A slight hollow reverb that didn't exist in her cozy carpeted apartment that was crammed with books and soft furniture. Hers was a place that muffled sound. This was different. Open. Bare. My heart started hammering against my ribs. A horrible sinking suspicion began to crawl up my spine. I needed to know. I needed a test. Shit. Hey, speaking of your place, I said, forcing a casual tone. Super random, but did I leave my contact lens solution in your bathroom? The big blue bottle? I can't find it anywhere and I'm blind without it. A pause. It was only a second, but it felt like an hour. Oh. I don't know, honey. Let me look. I heard a muffled shuffling sound. Then the distinct artificial sound of a cabinet opening. It sounded off. Too loud. Then some vague rustling noises. She was putting on a show. Are you in the bathroom? I asked. Yeah, I'm looking in the cabinet under the sink right now, she said, her voice strained with the effort of her fake search. I don't see it, Dan. And that's when I knew, because I had used the last of that contact fluid at her place on Sunday morning. I had thrown the empty blue bottle into her recycling bin myself. It wasn't there. She wasn't there. Okay, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Okay, no worries. I'll find it. You get some sleep. You sure I can look again? I'm sure I cut her off. Good night, Chloe. I hung up before she could reply. For a full minute, I just stood in my living room, the phone in my hand, my whole body buzzing with a sick electric energy. The lie was so blatant, so insulting. I grabbed my keys. The 15-minute drive to her apartment complex felt like an eternity. Every red light was a personal attack. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel, my jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. I wasn't angry yet. I was something else. Something colder. I was just a man on a mission following a gut feeling that was screaming so loud it drowned out everything else. I turned onto her street and slowed as I approached her building. I knew her spot. Lot C, Space 48. The one right under the only working floodlight. It was empty. Her silver Jetta was gone. I pulled into the visitor's spot across from hers and killed the engine. The silence in the car was deafening. I stared at the vacant slab of asphalt where her car should have been, the concrete proof of her lie. She wasn't at the gym. She wasn't asleep in her bed. She was somewhere else. I pulled out my phone and called her. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I sent a text. Asterisk. Where are you, asterisk? The three little dots never appeared. The message sat there delivered, but unread. I leaned my head back against the seat and closed my eyes, trying to breathe. For the next 50 minutes, I repeated the cycle. Call. Voicemail. Text. Nothing. My calls were being ignored. My existence was being ignored. The cold dread began to curdle into a hot, simmering rage. The betrayal wasn't just in the lie, it was in this complete and utter disregard. My phone screen was the only light in the dark car, a constant monument to her silence. 10:21 p.m. 10:28 p.m. 10:32 p.m. At 10:34 p.m., my phone finally buzzed to life, jolting me from my trance. Her picture filled the screen. Her name glowed under it. My thumb hovered over the green button for a second, my heart pounding a frantic, unsteady rhythm. I took a breath and swiped to answer, pressing the phone to my ear without a word. The line was quiet for a moment, and then I heard her voice small and hesitant. Dan? I let her name hang in the silence. I didn't help her. I didn't say a word. Dan, are you there? She asked, a thread of panic weaving into her voice. Where are you, Chloe? I asked. My voice was flat, hollow. The same echo I'd heard on her end was now inside my own chest. I told you I'm in bed. No, you're not, I said calmly. Your car's not here. I'm sitting in your parking lot looking at your empty space. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Where are you? The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of her entire lie collapsing. I heard a shaky breath, then the muffled sound of a car door closing. The engine started. I'm on my way home, she said, her voice cracking. I just left Alex's house. The name landed like a punch to the gut. It was real. It was all real. You just left, I repeated, my voice devoid of emotion. What time is it, Chloe? Dan, please. What time is it? I pressed harder this time. It's 10:30. And what time did you get there? A choked sob. Around 6. The numbers did a brutal, simple calculation in my head. 4.5 hours. 4.5 hours she had spent in his apartment while I sat at home waiting for her, staring at the cold container of Penang curry on my coffee table. So the gym? No, she whispered. The exhaustion? The going to bed early? No, You were at his apartment, I stated, laying out the facts like evidence in a trial, alone. From 6 o'clock until just now. What were you doing for 4.5 hours, Chloe? We made dinner, she confessed, the words tumbling out in a rush. We just cooked some pasta and opened a bottle of wine. We were listening to music and just talking. Cooking dinner. Listening to music. The image was so intimate, so domestic, it made me physically sick. She hadn't just lied about where she was. She had replaced me. She had played house with her ex-boyfriend for an evening. Drive home, I said, my voice like ice. I'll be waiting. I hung up and dropped the phone onto the passenger seat. The rage was gone, now replaced by a profound, desolate clarity. It was like watching a building you loved burn to the ground. You're horrified, you're devastated, but you know with absolute certainty that it's gone forever. There's nothing left to save. 10 minutes later, her silver Jetta's headlights swung into the parking lot. She pulled into her spot, space 48, the floodlight overhead illuminating her car like it was on a stage. I got out of my car and stood there, my arms crossed against the cold night air. She killed the engine, but didn't get out right away. I could see her silhouette through the windshield, her head bowed. Finally, the door opened, and she stepped out. Her face was blotchy and streaked with tears. She was wearing jeans and a nice sweater, not gym clothes. Dan, she started taking a step towards me. Don't. I held up a hand. The single word stopped her in her tracks. Just tell me why. I don't know, she stammered, pulling her sweater tight around herself. I was going to tell you. I swear. You didn't just lie, Chloe. You constructed an entire fictional evening. The gym, the exhaustion, the fake search for contact fluid you knew wasn't there. You performed. Why go to all that trouble? Her eyes darted away, unable to meet mine. Because I knew you'd be upset. I knew you would react like this. There it was, the classic defense. It wasn't her fault for doing it. It was my fault for how I would feel about it. The blame shifted neatly and cowardly onto me. A laugh escaped my lips, but it was a bitter, ugly sound. React like what I asked, my voice rising. Like an idiot for believing my girlfriend when she tells me she's at home safe in her bed? Or like a fool for finding out she was actually spending a 4-hour romantic evening with the ex she swore was just an old friend? It wasn't romantic, she insisted, tears streaming down her face again. Nothing happened, I swear, nothing physical happened. Oh, I believe you, I said, and the sincerity in my voice surprised her. She looked up, a flicker of hope in her eyes. I immediately crushed it. Because this isn't about sex. This is worse. You have been lying to me for weeks, haven't you? She flinched. What? No. The constant texting you brushed off as him being insistent. You've been talking to him every day, haven't you? Flirting. Reconnecting. I wasn't guessing. I was just connecting the dots that had been right in front of my face the whole time. This wasn't a catch-up, Chloe. This was an emotional affair. Her silence was my answer. The tears stopped. Her expression hardened into a defensive mask. The last little ember of hope inside me, the one that wished she would just break down and say, I'm so sorry I made a horrible mistake, went out. It just got complicated, she finally said, her voice quiet and resentful. No, it's actually incredibly simple, I replied, my own voice calm again. The clarity was back. You lied. You deceived me. You stood in another man's kitchen cooking a meal with him, and you sent me a 5-word text to dismiss me for the night like I was some kind of inconvenience. I took a step back, creating more space between us. The finality of it all washed over me. I don't know this person, I said, gesturing to her. The woman I love wouldn't be capable of this level of deceit. She wouldn't look me in the eye and lie so easily. Dan, please, she begged, the tears returning now that she was losing control of the situation. We can fix this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But her apology was hollow. It was the frantic apology of someone who'd been caught, not someone who was truly remorseful for the hurt they'd caused. She wasn't sorry she did it. She was sorry, I found out. I saw it all so clearly now. There was no trust left. And without trust, we had nothing. No, I said, the word soft but absolute. We can't. I turned my back on her. I didn't look back to see her reaction. I just walked to my car, got in, and started the engine. The sound of her calling my name was cut off as I shut the door. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I glanced in my rearview mirror. I saw her standing there, a lone figure under the stark, unforgiving light of the lamppost, watching me drive away. Watching me erase her from my life. And in that moment, leaving her alone with the consequences of her choices felt like the only justice I had left. It was a cold and empty victory, but it was mine. Story 11. 5 years. We'd been together for 5 years, and 3 of them were spent staring at each other through a screen. I was 23, she was 25, and we were both drowning in the final brutal stretch of our college programs. The 800 miles between us felt more like 8000. Every conversation was clipped, strained. We were running on fumes, and the engine of our relationship was sputtering. The fight that broke everything started over something so stupid it still makes my head spin. My brother had posted a picture from his birthday dinner. Just a group shot. Me, him, my parents, and his new girlfriend, Sarah. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. It was her. My fiancée. You have a crush on her, don't you? The text was so out of left field I thought it was a joke. Who, Sarah? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. The way you're standing next to her in that picture? You're practically on top of her. I pulled up the photo. I was standing next to my brother. Sarah was on his other side. There was a solid 3 feet of air between us. Are you looking at the same picture I am? I'm nowhere near her. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared for a full minute. It's the way you look at her. I can see it. You think she's prettier than me. This was her new thing. Jealousy weaponized. Any woman I came into contact with, a classmate, a cashier, my own damn brother's girlfriend, was suddenly a threat. It was exhausting. This is insane, I typed back, my thumbs jabbing the screen. She's my brother's girlfriend. I barely know her. You're inventing things to be angry about. Her call came instantly. I answered and her voice was already tight with tears. So I'm crazy now, is that it? You cheat on me in your head, and then you call me crazy for noticing. Cheat on you in my head, I practically yelled, dropping my textbook on the floor. I'm studying 20 hours a day for my finals. I don't have time to eat, let alone have an imaginary affair with my brother's girlfriend. You always do this. You turn it around on me. We went in circles for an hour. Her accusations got wilder. My denials got louder. Every word was a shovel, digging the trench between us a little deeper. I could feel a migraine starting behind my eyes. I had a thermodynamics exam in less than a week that I was already on track to fail. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do times as times right now. Stop, I said, cutting her off mid-sentence. The word hung in the dead air. What, she sniffled. We need to stop. This isn't helping. I can't focus. You can't focus. We're just tearing each other apart before the most important exams of our lives. I took a deep breath. Let's take a break. You're breaking up with me, her voice cracked, panicked. No. Not breaking up. A break. A pause. 1 month. No contact. We just focus completely on school. We get through our finals and then we talk. When we're not this stressed out, when we can actually think straight. Silence. I could hear her breathing shaky and uncertain. 1 month, she finally whispered. Okay. The 30 days were hell, but a productive hell. I lived in the library. I mainlined coffee and Adderall. I passed my exams. The silence from her was a constant low-level hum of anxiety in the back of my mind, but it was better than the screaming matches. I told myself I was doing the right thing, giving us space to heal, to reset. The day after my last final, I sat staring at my phone, my thumb hovering over her name. Before I could decide what to say, a message from her popped up. Hey, are you done with finals? My heart hammered against my ribs. Yeah. Just finished my last one this morning. You? Finished yesterday. I miss you. A wave of relief washed over me. Maybe it had worked. Maybe the space was what we needed. I miss you too. More than you know. We talked for hours that night. It felt normal. We avoided the big subjects, just catching up, laughing about stupid things. It felt like us again. For the first time in months, I let myself feel hopeful. I had spent over $17,000 on this relationship. Over the years, flights, gifts, dinners, 1,000 little things. I'd even had my grandmother's engagement ring professionally restored and customized for her a family heirloom that meant the world to me. I was all in. I just needed her to be too. A week later, we were on a video call. She was telling me about a difficult professor when her expression shifted. She started picking at a loose thread on her sweater, avoiding the camera. I have to tell you something, she said, her voice small. My stomach tightened. Okay. When we were going through that rough patch, before the break, I was really lonely and upset. I started talking to someone. An online friend. His name is Strat. He's in a few of the gaming communities I'm in. She looked up her eyes, pleading for understanding. He was just easy to talk to. He listened. And he helped me out. Helped you out how I asked my voice flat? Financially. Just a little. I was short on my textbook money and he sent me a couple $100. I was going to pay him back. A couple $100. From some random guy online, a guy she'd never mentioned. A cold knot formed in my gut, but I pushed it down. We were struggling. I was struggling. Maybe I hadn't been there for her enough. Okay, I said slowly. I don't love that, but I get it. You were stressed. We weren't talking. I was trying to be the bigger person. I was trying to make this work. Thank you for understanding, she said, relief flooding her face. It meant a lot that he was there for me. I nodded, forcing a smile I didn't feel. As long as it's over, we're back now. That's all that matters. She held my gaze, but something was off. The relief in her eyes was being replaced by a shadow of guilt. She bit her lip, then took a shaky breath. It didn't stop there, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Liam, there's more. My blood ran cold. The forced smile fell from my face. What do you mean there's more? She looked down at her hands, refusing to meet my eyes on the screen. During the month we were on our break, she trailed off, swallowing hard. Things escalated. Escalated, how I demanded, my voice rising. What did you do? She finally looked up, her eyes swimming with tears that didn't look real. They looked like props. Her lips parted, and the words she spoke shattered the entire world around me. I sent him pictures of myself, Liam. My mind went blank. Pictures. What kind of pictures? Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion, like she was reading a weather report. Nudes. The video feed froze for a second, but her face was still there, a perfect mask of practiced sorrow. My world tilted. The floor felt like it was dropping out from under me. You sent nudes, I repeated, the words tasting like ash. To Strat. The guy who sent you textbook money. Yes. No hesitation. Just a flat statement of fact. A laugh sharp and ugly tore out of my throat. Of course. Of course you did. And all that shit you gave me about Sarah, about my brother's girlfriend, that was all just projection, wasn't it? You were already talking to this guy, so you had to invent a reason to believe I was doing the same thing. She flinched. A direct hit. It wasn't like that. Don't lie to me, I snarled, leaning into my laptop camera. The person staring back at her wasn't her fiancé anymore. I didn't recognize him. Don't you dare lie to me now. You picked a fight to push me away. You agreed to that 1-month break so you could have a free pass to test drive someone new. Her fake tears dried up instantly, replaced by a cold defensiveness. I was lonely. You weren't there for me. Strat was. He listened to me. He actually cared about what I was going through. I was drowning in my final semester of engineering, the same way you were in nursing. We were supposed to be getting through it together. I slammed my hand on my desk, the webcam rattling. Instead, you were getting validation from some random dude on the internet. You let him pay your bills, and then you sent him photos of your body. My body. The one you were supposed to be marrying. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. I waited for an apology. For a sob. For anything that sounded like remorse. I got nothing. Do you regret it? I finally asked, my voice dangerously quiet. She looked away, tucking a piece of hair behind her ear as if we were discussing the weather. No. The word hit me harder than a punch. No. I don't regret it, she said, her voice gaining a chilling strength. She finally met my gaze on the screen. Honestly, Liam, I was torn. I had real feelings for him. I almost used the money he sent me to buy a plane ticket to go see him. My vision swam. She hadn't just cheated. She had been actively planning to leave. She had weighed 5 years of my life, of my love, of my support, against a few weeks of online chatter with a stranger. And I had almost lost. He told me to choose, she continued, as if she were the hero of this story. He said he wouldn't be the other man. So I had to make a decision. And I chose you. I thought you'd be happy. Happy. She thought I'd be times happy, times to know I was plan A only because plan B had a conscience. She was presenting her decision to stay with me as a gift. A favor. The ring, I said, the words catching in my throat. My grandmother's ring. The one I had restored for you. All the money, the flights, the years. That was all just a placeholder while you shopped around. That's not fair. Fair, I exploded. You want to talk about fair? I have spent over $17,000 keeping this relationship afloat while you were taking money from another man and sending him naked pictures of yourself. I was your backup plan, your safe bet, and you have the audacity to sit there and tell me you don't regret a single second of it. I stood up, backing away from the screen, needing to put distance between us, even if it was only digital. We're done, I said. The words felt foreign, but right. The engagement is over. It's done. Liam, wait. I didn't wait. I slammed my laptop shut. The silence in my apartment was absolute. For 5 years, every quiet moment had been filled with thoughts of her. Now, there was just a gaping, echoing void. 2 days later, the phone calls started. Then the texts. A fire hose of apologies and excuses. Asterisk, I made a mistake. I was confused. I was just scared. I love you. It was you I chose. It's always been you. Asterisk. The words she should have said from the start now deployed like a last-ditch weapon system when she realized the consequences were real. I let her spin for a full day before I finally answered. I was wrong, she sobbed into the phone. I was so wrong. Please, Liam. 5 years. Don't throw it all away. I'll do anything. My heart, stupid and conditioned, felt a flicker of something. But my brain was cold stone. I had spent the last 48 hours talking to my brother, my parents, anyone who would listen. They all saw what I was too close to see, a pattern of manipulation I had mistaken for love. Anything I asked, my voice flat. Yes, anything. I promise. Okay. One condition. You delete and block every single male friend you have on all your social media and in your phone. Strat first, then all the rest. The ones you game with, the ones from high school, all of them. From now on, your only male friends are my friends and my family. That's the deal. It was an impossible, controlling demand. I knew it. But I wasn't trying to fix the relationship. I was testing the wreckage. I wanted to see if she understood what she had broken. Trust. Silence. Not the answer of, okay, done. Not, I'm deleting them right now, just dead air. Well, what about Mark? She finally stammered. He's practically my brother. And what about David? He's gay. And there it was. The tell. The final damning piece of evidence. Even now, with everything on the line, she was hedging, negotiating, protecting her network. She wasn't willing to give up her audience. I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was the sound of a lock breaking. You still don't get it, I said. It was never about them. It was about you. It was about proving you could be trusted again. And you can't. You failed. That's not fair. You're being unreasonable. I'm being done, I corrected her. I called your mom. She's getting the ring from your apartment and mailing it back to me. It's a family heirloom, and you are no longer family. A choked gasp on the other end. I hope it was worth it, I said, and for the first time in 5 years I felt the immense weight of our relationship lift off my shoulders. It wasn't love. It was a burden. A nightmare I'd finally woken up from. Goodbye. I hung up the phone before she could say another word, and then I blocked her number. I stared out my window, the sky clearer than it had been in years. I had just lost my fiancé, but I had saved myself from a wife. And that felt like a win.